across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. In just a few moments' time, we're going to speak to the Reform UK MP, Sarah Pochin. Their big story of the day has been that they want foreign nationals to not get social housing. We'll be asking Sarah why and what the thinking is behind that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too. 0344 499 1000. The big political story today is about the social media ban. The parent of a dead teenager berating Starmer's ban as a rush job, as he has put it. We'll speak to a father about that. We'll also ask Sarah Pochin about defence and the fact that Keir Starmer has basically said there's no more money and the new Defence Secretary Dan Jarvis is going to have to suck it up and deal with what he's got. But is there more money if Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister? And could people receive a basic income 5 times what they receive on benefits if he becomes Prime Minister? Is that a good idea? There's so much to talk about. Also, the Palestine action ban being lawful according to the Court of Appeal. We'll talk a little bit later on about that social media ban. If you're the parent of a 16 or 17-year-old or a 15-year-old around that kind of mid-teenage time, I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear from your kids as well if you allow them to come on. Obviously, we need parental permission if people are under 18. So please do give us a ring on 0344 499 1000 to have a chat about that, because how that will have a negative impact or indeed a positive impact on your kids is something I want to talk about. Also, Russia was apparently behind the arson attacks targeting the Prime Minister, and the US and Iran have agreed a deal to end the war, but will it? We'll also talk about Carrow Council and subcontractors abusing a member of the public in the street. It's a really shocking video, and today is the 30th anniversary of the Manchester bombings at the Arndale Centre, so we'll be reflecting that too. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, please do get in touch. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, send me a WhatsApp text message, send me a voice note, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. So much to talk about between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with me here on the Evening Exchange, here on Talk. Well, Sarah Pochin is a Reform UK MP, the MP for Runcorn and Helsby. Sarah, it's great to have you on the programme. How are you doing?
Good evening, Peter. I'm really well, thank you.
Excellent. Tell me your thoughts on what your party has been saying today on the social housing ban for foreign tenants. What do you make of it?
Well, we've been announcing several things today, but with respect to this particular issue, it's quite clear, Peter, what we're saying, and that is that housing and housing list priority should be given to British citizens, to British people that are in need. In my constituency of Runcorn and Helsby, there are 3,800 people on the housing list, yet we're housing 600 illegal migrants. That can't be right.
And what would you do to change it? What would Reform do to change it? And if a foreign national needs a home at all, would they just go to the bottom of the housing list, or what would happen?
It's about being a British citizen. So what we're saying is quite clear that British citizens will be prioritised. That's very clear. As you know, Reform policy is that any illegal migrants, when we are in power, will be detained, will be deported. So despite this government dispersing and emptying the asylum hotels, dispersing those inhabitants throughout the community, clearly it's going to be a hell of a job to locate everyone here that is here illegally. But we can start by every single arrival on this shore being detained and deported and not being given housing, which is what is happening at the moment, ahead of our veterans, ahead of British citizens in need.
Social media and a social media ban is the big political story today. I just want to hear a little bit about what the Prime Minister said earlier on today, and I'll get your reaction. Let's hear from Keir Starmer.
Social media is making children unhappy. It's making it easier for bullies to harass and abuse them. And it could even be harming their mental health, exposing them to content that is dangerous, because that's what grabs the attention. It's designed to be addictive. Features like the infinite scroll, they're designed to lock you in for hours. there's an opportunity cost to that. It stops children doing their homework, reading, playing with their friends outside, going to bed at decent hour. But these are the activities that help a child develop into an adult. We know how important they are. We just never thought that something would come along to threaten them.
Sarah, what do you think about what the government's doing here?
Well, it's all very laudable what our Prime Minister is saying, but let's face it, I'm a mum, I've got 2 children. Well, they're not children, they're in their mid-20s now. But the point is that they've tried this in Australia, yet 80% of under-16s are still on social media. It hasn't worked then. Look, the Pandora's box, if you like, of the internet, of all of these platforms, it's open. You know, you cannot, this is shutting the door after the horse has bolted. The fact is that children, through whether it's through VPNs or whatever clever stuff, they will access this stuff if they want to. In my opinion, and the opinion of our party, that we should be looking at more the cleverer solutions, like, for example, the actual handset being able to restrict inappropriate viewing material. We should be asking the tech giants to do more in that way. But an actual ban, what concerns me, Peter, is that socialism, the core of socialism, is about control. And here we have a government that is trying to control what people see, what people think. And this is a great concern, because I was in a taxi tonight, for example, and the taxi driver was saying they'd had a letter from Sadiq Khan telling them not to engage with passengers, not to give them opinions on politics, or the mayor, Sadiq Khan himself, or, you know, restricting.
That's crazy. I mean, taxi drivers are some of the best sources of what's going on. They talk to so many different people. Anytime I'm in a taxi, whether it's an Uber, whether it's a black taxi, whatever it is, I always talk to the driver, because they talk to so many people and they know what's going on. I mean, I mean, black taxi drivers in particular are known for their opinions. That's part of the London experience, and part of the experience in many other big cities around the country as well when you go into a taxi.
Yeah, absolutely. I listen to my black cabbie every morning and every evening to hear their different opinions. But the point is this, going back to the social media ban, it is about controlling speech. We are controlling what our children think, not teaching them how to think. And yes, of course, there are always tragic cases where children have been severely affected, if not led to take their own lives by social media. And that is utterly tragic. But I do not believe this is the right solution. And as I say, it's failed in Australia. Why does the Prime Minister, with all his soft and gooey words, think that this is actually going to work? It won't work.
Tell us your thoughts on what the Prime Minister has been saying about defence. We have a new Defence Secretary now. We have a new Armed Forces Minister as well. We're in a situation where this whole plan about money for defence is something that a lot in the Labour Party and elsewhere, various defence officials and so on, aren't happy with it. What do you make of what's happened, and what would Reform UK do with defence? How much money would they give it?
Look, the defence budget is currently between 60 and 66 billion. The fact is that our benefits bill is 350 billion approximately. You know, that cannot be right. We've got a foreign aid bill, which is a budget, which is 14 billion. And I could go on. I mean, let alone the money that are predicted to be spent on illegal migrants, 15 billion over the next 10 years. And that's just accommodation. There is so much money that is wasted, in our opinion, spent inappropriately, which could be directed into defence. And can I just say that the 14 years of the Tory government, let alone the accelerated actions of the last nearly 2 years of the Labour government, both of them should be ashamed of themselves in terms of defending this great country of ours, because the first duty of any government is to defend its people. And currently we are utterly defenceless.
And Sarah, I mean, speaking of people who would do our country harm, Palestine Action has now, it's gone to the Court of Appeal, and they have ruled that it is a proscribed organisation. Is that something we should all welcome?
Absolutely, and it should be followed quickly by the IRGC. You know, what are we even doing messing around here? These are clearly terrorist organisations, and they absolutely should be prescribed in this country. And we should have fairness in terms of these marches that go on. You know, I'm still shocked about the fact that recently there was facial recognition used on the Unite the Flags or Unite the Kingdom. I can't remember quite what it was called.
Unite the Kingdom, yeah.
Thank you. And yet not on the pro-Palestine march up the road. You know, we have to get back to equality for all. Everybody is equal in the eyes of the law, but any terrorist organisation needs to be banned.
But when it comes to free speech, for example, if someone simply holds up a placard saying, I support Palestine action, they could be arrested and face imprisonment for doing that. Is that something you're happy with?
Well, before long, you and I won't even be able to have the conversation we're having tonight. We'll be arrested. Although I'd like to see them try and put me into prison for just saying the things that I believe in. The fact is they're clamping down on free speech left, right and centre. But, of course, this country is a wonderful democracy and needs to be protected. And that's exactly what Reform want to do. We want to allow people to have their different views, but clearly not when it comes to advertising and promoting, I should say, you know, anti-Western views. They hate our culture, some of these pro-Palestine protesters, you know, and that clearly cannot be allowed. We could not possibly go to their country and, you know, put up a banner that said, you know, as an anti-Palestine banner without, you know, getting arrested.
Speaking of people who hate our country, it's very interesting that there appears to be evidence to say that Russia was behind the arson attacks that targeted the Prime Minister, some convictions in that case as well. What do you make of that affair?
Oh, do you know what? I don't know who to believe, and I'm rather cynical about these things. You know, the stories that get spun around to protect individuals, I'd rather not comment. I don't know enough about it, but I'm pretty sceptical about some of these spin stories that come out. I mean, it's like, you know, us boarding the Russian oil tanker yesterday. Oh, how timely that was, you know. I mean, like I say, all of this, sometimes politics is a very shallow game, but I don't think the British people are fools. They can see through some of this.
As I often say, Sarah, just because you're cynical doesn't necessarily mean that you're wrong. One person who is certainly in your sights and Reform UK sites is Andy Burnham, Makerfield by-election in 3 days' time, and the basic income is something that he says that he would implement. That could increase welfare payments by about 5 times. That is something that would mean a major change to how the government's relationship with the people is. What do you think of the universal basic income and your thoughts on the Makerfield by-election too?
Well, my thoughts on Andy Burnham is he's already U-turned, I think, 3 times. This is just a policy that he's come out with to try and win votes. And I guarantee you, if he gets in, he will U-turn on this as well. He's U-turned on his stance on Europe. He's U-turned on his stance on whether or not he knows what a woman is. He's U-turned on whether or not he agrees with trans people using female spaces. You know, you name it. He's not even won, and he's U-turned left, right and centre. I don't believe a word that comes out of that man's mouth.
Will you be up in Makerfield between now and Thursday?
Absolutely.
OK. Sarah, very good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us on Talk this evening. And because the Makerfield by-election is on Thursday, that is Sarah Poachin there, of course, who is the Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby. Thank you for joining us. And the Makerfield by-election is on Thursday. The confirmed candidates are Jake Austin for the Liberal Democrats, Count Binface for the Count Binface Party, Andy Burnham for the Labour Party, Dan Clark for the Libertarian Party, John Dyer is an independent, Ed Gemmell is from the Climate Party, Paul Gould is an independent, Alan Howling Lord Hope is the official Munster Raving Looney Party candidate, Robert Kenyon is from Reform UK, Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd from Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield from the Green Party, Peter Ward from Rejoin EU, and Michael Winstanley from the Conservative Party. Lots of people getting in touch, including Keith in Nottingham, who says, "Evening, Peter." Evening, Keith. Banning kids from social media, good luck with that. Last week I heard on Talk that the phone giants have the technology to make stolen phones unusable. If that technology is available, sure, the ability to block harmful videos, etc., is is possible for the under-16s. Oh, it's all possible. It's all absolutely possible, Keith. There's no doubt about that. James says, I'm fully supportive of a social media ban for children. These platforms are not built with developing brains in mind, and the damage they are causing is now being proven in terms of health, brain development, academic performance and social impact. A ban at the very least will force the tech companies to build safe platforms for children. The technology is there, but there's currently no financial incentive to make them do it. Any rhetoric about free speech from the tech companies is then putting profit before health. It's reminiscent of the tobacco lobby decades ago, says James. And Amanda from London says the shutdown of social media for under-16s is a deliberate ploy to direct gullible children to the socialist Blue Sky site for further brainwashing and control, says Amanda in London. And Penny in Essex says, good evening, Peter. How much longer have we got to listen to the drivel spouting out of this wooden-headed muppet called Starmer? Regarding social media, kids are very savvy, and in Australia, they've found a way around it already. This surely should be called parenting when parents are not busy on their own social media, nothing to do with them. He needs to address migration, knife crime, shoplifting, the cost of living and everything else, which is wrong in this now awful country. But he stands there saying by next spring, children will be safe, 9 months away. He's a total useless embarrassment in Penny's thoughts. We have a couple of voice notes on social media. First from Peter.
Good evening, Peter. Well, Keir Starmer and him trying to ban the social media for kids, it won't be long before it extends to adults and their free speech. If someone posts something on social media that the government don't like, 1984 style, they will have us banned from social media for maybe 2 to 5 years, you know, in their term of office. And on top of that, probably sent to jail, and you won't be able to tell anybody about it, will you? Because you've been banned from telling anybody on social media. It's an absolute disgrace.
Peter, thanks for that. I hope we're not there just yet. I hope we never get there. I am worried, certainly, about free speech in this country. I'm also worried about the fact they want kids to vote at 16, which I think is too young, yet they won't allow them to watch content on YouTube. For example, if social media apps are banned for under-16s can't watch this programme. If it's on YouTube, for example, they need to watch it somewhere else on some of the other places you can watch it on or listen to it on a smart speaker or whatever. And that's fine, I suppose. There are other ways to do it. But if you want to inform yourself about what's going on in the world, if you want to teach yourself to think and have opinions on things, well, I would want them to have access to news media. Let's hear a voice note from Nick on social media.
Starmer's ban on social media for the under-16s is no surprise. Indeed, it's something I foresaw some years ago. And this is nothing to do with the protection of children. This is about Starmer, his obsession with digital ID, and he's using this as a way to impose digital ID on everybody, including us adults. And don't be surprised if at the next election he uses it in an extremely sinister way. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see everybody banned from social media prior to the next election.
Nick, thanks for that. Mick in Leeds, not Nick, but Mick in Leeds says, evening, Peter. Has anyone said what happens if an under-16-year-old gets caught on social media? Is it the parents who are going to be fined? Because that would be a great cash grab for Starmer. Fern in Glasgow says, I'm in my 50s, but I will be banned from social media too, as I refuse to provide my ID or facial recognition in order to access it. There's also, this is also data harvesting on us all, in my opinion, says Fern. And Betty says, hi Peter, cracking shirt. Thank you very much. The sad fact is Labour is so arrogant it believes turning off independent media and forcing them onto insufferable Blue Sky and BBC will make all the new 16-year-olds vote for them. They still believe their policies are working, and it's just nasty right wing, says Betty. Lots to discuss on all of this. Please give me a shout on 0344 499 1000. Great voice notes so far. We'll take some calls as time goes on as well, and thanks for all the messages, which have been superb as well. We're going on to the debate desk in a second. Joe Wheeler will join us, as will Silsia Manwa, who is a former Labour councillor. We'll talk to them both in just a second, so stay with us here on Talk and get your call in 0344 499 1000.
I'm genuinely disgusted when people continue to point out failure after failure after failure and do not provide balanced analysis of the deliverable of services like the police. What I don't see from reform is them standing next to some of these people that they continually criticise and saying, actually, they've made a mistake here. There is a requirement for a review and we must get through it. But I'd also like to thank the police for doing an excellent job at stopping the riots, doing this, breaking this criminal gang, doing the hard work they do day in, day out. And I think we take it for granted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
James has been in touch and says, I'm fully supportive of a social media ban for children. These platforms are not built with developing brains in mind, and the damage they are causing is now being proven in terms of health, brain development, academic performance and social impact. A ban at the very least will force the tech companies to build safe platforms for children. The technology is there, but there's currently no financial incentive to make them do it. Any rhetoric about free speech from the tech companies is them putting profit before health. It's reminiscent of the tobacco lobby. What do you think of what James said at 0344 499 1000? And indeed, our debate desk, Joe Wheeler, regular, is with us, broadcaster and meteorologist. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
You well? The first time for me, but not the first time on the debate desk, is Silcia, a former Manwa, who is a former Labour councillor. Lovely to see you. How are you doing?
Good.
Welcome to the debate desk proper. Yes. It's good to have you there. What do you make of the social media ban? Because Keir Starmer has put a lot of political capital behind this. It's been coming for a while. What's your view, Silcia?
Well, I welcome the Prime Minister rising to the challenge of social media, particularly against young people, because at the end of the day, these social media channels, the algorithms which they use, I think it does unfairly sort of target young children who are going to be more susceptible to these things. So in practice, or in theory, I align, but I think the problem is, and this is a problem that affects people irrespective of age, is the algorithms. And I think that's something that really needs to be challenged, because as has been said on your show, Australia have implemented this ban recently and most young people have found a way around it. And I don't think that's necessarily something the UK can escape. So what I think really needs to be done is pressure on these big tech companies to recognise that their algorithms are really harmful in what they promote, and that's something that impacts everyone irrespective of age.
Is there a way that the technology, the government, the authorities can actually stay ahead of the development? It's also interesting when you're banning specific things like YouTube, for example, like Twitter, or X as it's now called, but not Blue Sky. And I just think there are always going to be the audience is always going to go to other apps as well, and these apps rise and fall. When I was probably your age, Facebook was the thing. Now Facebook is kind of for fuddy-duddies. It's interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I do recognise that the point that I think is really important is that a lot of social media has an educative aspect to it as well, and a real positive. So I think a blanket ban on apps, I don't know the specifics in terms of what's been banned, what hasn't.
So Blue Sky hasn't, but X has.
X has.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm personally not on X because I think it's been really harmful ever since Musk took over. Personally, I've seen a shift in the type of rhetoric which is being promoted on there. But I think more generally, social media has as many positives as negatives, and I think that the ban hasn't necessarily addressed that fact.
Joe?
Well, it has to be said that way back when I started my television career, it was in a programme about computing. And I think the one thing that came home to roost in that first series was the fact that the kids knew more than we did. You know, even though computers and all that technology was embryonic at the time, you know, the kids were going far faster than we were. And that's still happening now. You know, I have 5 children, the youngest of which is 25. Sorry, Sam, if I've got that wrong.
Changes every year.
I know, it does.
Can't keep up.
Hard to keep up. And, you know, every single time something happens, they will find a way around it in a way that you as a computer user, and you think you're a competent one, yeah, had no idea about. So actually, I think this whole thing is completely useless. I agree with you about the algorithms. They're out to get you. They're out to hook you. My eldest daughter was talking the other day. She just had a second child. She said they're playing on my insecurities. You know, I'm getting all these messages about stuff that she didn't want to know about. And yes, I agree with that. And that, you know, that's a bad thing, but nobody's looking to stop that. And actually, I don't think this looking after children is anything to do with this. It's all about digital ID.
Really?
100%.
I mean, it's interesting. Adrian's been in touch from Woking, and he says first step social media, second digital ID, third central bank digital currency, and then they will control what you can buy and where you can go. Is that something you're worried about, Celsia?
I don't know if I'm as convinced by the entire digital ID argument, but I do think that there is something to be said about more restrictive social media and the power that these tech companies have with our data. They collect so much of it.
So I wonder why Blue Sky is not banned, for example. That seems strange to me.
I mean, I couldn't give you any idea as to why.
There are going to be people who will say, maybe you're one of them, Joe, will say, well, X is Elon Musk and Starmer doesn't like Elon Musk. Blue Sky has more people on the left, therefore he's happy enough with that. I mean, is that a reasonable argument, Joe, or am I being too cynical?
No, and do you know something? It was just one of those crashing mistakes to leave it out. Yeah, because actually, if you're looking to make a case, you go blanket. Yeah, you get rid of all of them. I mean, you know, threads as well. Yeah, they all go. Either they all go or they all stay. You cannot pick and choose and say, well, we quite like that one. You know, it's all right. Or we've got better control of that one. And if that is the situation, then say so. You know, say, well, with Blue Sky, you know, we can do this or we can do that. But I mean, the point that Cece was making earlier, you know, a lot of people use YouTube for educational purposes. And again, I go back to the fact I've got 5 children. You know, the stuff that they watch on there about, you know, old crime cases, the stuff that they learn through
I love watching really old documentaries, like old panoramas and stuff.
Yes,
and I love all that kind of stuff. Like Roger Cook, who died today, brilliant investigative journalist. I've been watching some of the clips of the stuff he was up to in the 80s and 90s, doorstepping all the bad guys and getting beaten up and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's just, it is a really good platform in many ways.
It also shows you what life used to be like.
Yes.
Now, you see, that's a very important thing. I do feel that today's politicians don't want you to remember how life used to be like, how we used to gather news, how we used to live our lives, how we used to share information and you know, or any of it. I get the feeling they don't want you to know.
And this is an interesting one from David Litchfield, who says, when applying for a US ESTA, that's a kind of temporary visa to get into America, I think I've got one, I've certainly had them in the past, I think this may be still valid, you're now asked to provide your social media usernames. Yes, I've done that myself. It's voluntary today, but for how long? If social media is becoming part of how people are assessed, how far away are we for being checked when applying for civil service jobs, teaching roles, or other public sector positions? We've spent years putting our lives online. Are we sleepwalking into a future where a social media profile becomes a form of digital character reference, says David Litchfield. I wonder what you think of that, Celsia, because certainly MPs and people running for office, I mean, Makerfield by-election, Robert Kenyon, for example, the Reform candidate, has come a cropper with some of his former previous social media posts. So the thing I was always told, I remember as a young journalist for the BBC, my boss said, in the sort of advent of Twitter, he said, if you wouldn't say it on air, don't put it on Twitter. And that's essentially the rule that I found. What do you think of, you know, this sort of digital archaeology where we look into kind of what people have said previously? Is that fair?
I would say that it is fair, especially if you're running for public office. I think people are going to be interested in what you've said in the past, not just what you're going to say to get votes when it comes to the ballot box. And I think we all have a responsibility that our digital footprint does stay for us, for better or worse. It's always going to be online. People need to really think before they put things online. And if you are going to put something controversial, be prepared to defend that if you get brought up on it. I don't think free speech isn't necessarily you're free from responsibility from the consequences of what you say.
What if you change your opinion? And what if it's, you know, say you're going for a job or something, and someone says, well, I see in, you know, 2018 you said something crazy when you were younger, or you didn't have you weren't as plugged in, or you weren't as thoughtful or whatever, or mature perhaps as you are now. Is that fair?
I think that we do need to give a bit of grace, because at the end of the day, people change. And the only difference between saying something in person and online is that with online, it's like a permanent record.
Yes.
Whereas, when you say something, between two people, it may not necessarily go anywhere. So I do think that there is a level of grace that can be afforded, but then again, it depends what you're saying. If you're saying really extreme sort of views, I think that brings into question your competence and your judgment if you had such strong extreme views on something and then you've come completely to the other side, I think.
Graham in Bushy says, as a fuddy-duddy, do you still have a MySpace account, Peter? No, but I do have a Bebo one. Not really. I remember Bebo. Bebo was about 20 years ago. Simon in South Buckinghamshire says, I've been a bit surprised by the overwhelming opposition to the ban on social media on your show, Peter. I see this as akin to moving pornographic magazines and the likes of Loaded, etc., back in the day, higher up towards the top shelves to protect our children from them. There are huge issues for children's use of the internet and social media, and it's beholden upon them, us as adults, to protect them. Children do not have free speech and rights, and nor should nor should they. I also fully agree that with you regarding votes of 16. You can vote, but not buy cigarettes or alcohol. Fight on the front line, be punished as an adult member under the law, or look at certain aspects of social media. Bad law is worse than no law. I think you're a great broadcaster and a great show. Simon, thank you, and a perfect example of what we do in this show, which is disagreeing without being disagreeable. What do you make of what Simon says? Is there, how do we best protect kids online, Joe?
I'm not entirely sure that we can. Apart from educating them face-to-face, within the family, within schools, whatever it may be. I mean, that there are all these warnings about inappropriate content on the internet. I have to say, I've never been able to find any. I'm obviously just the wrong person.
Maybe you get your children to help you.
Probably do need that. And I've never walked in on my children watching inappropriate content either. So I don't suppose I've ever really seen that dark side of it. I do remember, way back when computers were very new for children but starting to be used, there was a degree of bullying within that thing that you mentioned, MySpace,
yes,
I think.
Yeah.
And this was a whole new thing. And the answer to, anybody who was brought up not in the computer age was switch the damn thing off. Yeah, just make it go away.
Well, Cecilia, can you do that? Because I often say, there are loads of adults saying kids need to be off social media. I think a load of adults need to be off social media. They say, our kids are on their phones too much. Most people I know are on their phone all the time. You can rarely have a conversation with someone without them picking up their phone and checking something, or maybe that's just because I'm boring. But the point in it is that the bullying doesn't stop at the school gates, does it? It continues. And also, there are ways that kids can really be affected. I remember I was chatting to a 13-year-old once. He's a bit older now. I was chatting to a 13-year-old who told me about, even though he didn't have a phone, in his school, people were crowding round one phone where they were looking at videos of people taking their own life or being encouraged to take their own life. Just horrific stuff.
Yes.
And I just thought, I don't want him or anybody I know or any child anywhere near that kind of stuff. But that is all. It's all out there, and we don't even. I didn't even realise that was on the internet. I suppose if I'd thought about it, I would have remembered. But as someone who's perhaps a little bit younger than Joe and me, what's been your experience kind of growing up with all of this?
Yeah, well, I've grown up with social media, and I'm 22 now, but in terms of since primary school, really, people had WhatsApp, and Snapchat, all these things. It's really difficult because, if I'm honest, on social media, if you want to find something, you will, and that includes some of the most extreme sort of violence or pornography, all those things. It's all on there, and it's not regulated enough, really. And I think that has had a massive impact on young people when it comes to either attention spans, really, because all of this instant gratification that people get online, or it's just being exposed to really harmful content which can radicalise people from quite a young age. So I think that as someone who's grown up with social media, I've also seen the benefits of it. I'm someone who uses it and posts on it, and I've learnt a lot from social media. There are a plethora of positives that I think can get overshadowed in these sorts of debates, but at the same time, I do welcome the government trying to take an action to protect children from some of this content, because at the end of the day, these are developing minds and they don't necessarily have the protections that they need.
With my other hat on, which is as an etiquette consultant, I'm quite often...
Is there any job you don't do?
Not many. I'm not a fireman.
You're a Yet. You're a Jacqueline of many trades. An etiquette consultant. I did not know that. Okay.
Did you not?
I didn't know.
Oh, no.
I will hold my fork in the proper way.
Yeah, you should. But not necessarily with me. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, I often get asked about, young people using mobile phones, and the one thing that I have said throughout is that in my experience they use them less than we do. Those of us who grew up with a telephone that rang on the wall attached by a wire, and it cost however much, what was it, 2 pence per minute or whatever, before 6 o'clock, I don't know, after 6 o'clock. You kept your calls short, you put the phone back on the wall, this was this, and now if my phone rings, I feel compelled to answer it. My children do not. Their phones are on silent 24/7. You would never know their phones ring. Occasionally they'll lift them up and look at them at a time when we're not in conversation and go, oh, I've just had a call from so-and-so, I'll call them back later. Or, oh, so-and-so message. That they are not beholden to their phones in the same way that an older generation is. So as an older generation, what right have we got to make consideration about what they can or can't do?
Do you make phone calls, Cecilia?
I do. I am that person who has do not disturb on most of the time, if I'm honest. But I do take your point. Like, go onto the tube, look around you, everyone's on their phone. It's not necessarily just young people.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's a really valid point.
Nicola in Northern Ireland says, Keir Starmer does not have the children's best interests at heart. This is a stepping stone to digital ID, in Nicola's opinion. Banning under-16s will mean everyone else above that age having to verify their age and identity to use social media. If Keir Starmer was concerned about the children's mental health, surely he would address the illegal migrant crisis rather than housing them near schools and housing estates. Great presenter and great show. Keep up the good work, says Nicola. Thank you. And Glenn in Catterick, haven't heard from you in a while, Glenn. It's great to hear from you. The social media ban, just you watch the use of VPNs absolutely rocket, says Glenn, who says it's a great show. And just finally, before we go to the break, Chris in Newbury says, regarding social media ban, 19 days ago the NHS released a report, NHS Women on Equality's 12th report 2024 to 2026, menstrual health of girls and young women, recommendation 11, TikTok will provide an important route for reaching girls and younger women with health information. Not from next spring, it won't. Peter, will the government now explain how the NHS and other organisations will communicate to young people? Phone them on a landline, says Chris in Newbury. Very, very interesting. Keep your calls, texts, tweets and voice notes coming in. 0344 499 1000. Back in the debate desk with Joe and Silcia in just a second. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And we're back. Thank you to everybody who has been in touch. Steve says, so the Russians are responsible for the so-called attacks on Starmer to drive division. There's one thing Starmer doesn't need help with, it is driving division. Paul says the only reason Starmer wants to ban kids on social media is because he wants them to watch the government social media, aka the BBC, in Paul's opinion. And Bridget in France says, good evening, Peter. Great show, top man. I've read 1984 twice, just to confirm how bad it couldn't possibly be, but it is under Starmer and has become. The last thing we need is a repeat of Starmer, only worse under Burnham. God help us all. Keep the good work, says Bridget. Well, thank you for that. Lots to talk about beyond social media, but if you are interested in the social media story, and particularly if you are a young person, I'd love to hear from you. 0344 499 1000, or a parent or a grandparent. Whatever you think, let me know your thoughts. I want to talk about defence as well, because we have a new Defence Secretary. Al Carnes, who was the Armed Forces Minister, was on with Julia a little bit earlier on, and Starmer has essentially said there won't be any more money for defence. It's interesting, we have Dan Jarvis now, a former paratrooper himself, who is the Defence Secretary. Where does this all go, Silcia, do you think?
I think that it's important to first say that it's important that we invest in defence.
So where does the money come from?
I don't necessarily have the answer, and it seems that the government hasn't particularly got an answer either, hence why they're not willing to extend the spending. I do think that we are living in insecure times, so security is something we're going to have to focus on a lot more. But at the same time, we can throw as much money at it as we want. If we're not actually looking at how that money is being spent and the efficiency behind it, then I guess that might be some of the argument behind why they're refusing to give more money to defence. But it's not my area of expertise particularly, so that's all I can really say on it.
You're still a citizen though, and you still have an opinion. Joe, what do you think? Where should the money come from to fund defence if that's what you think we should be doing?
Well, first of all, and can I be, say that I'm sorry that Dan missed the Trooping the Colour on Saturday, Sunday, whenever it was. That was a shame. Apparently he's asking for the same amount of money that his predecessors were, and being told no, he's not going to get it.
Yes.
The spending that this country makes on defence is pitiful, and it's made us the laughing stock of many other countries. We've also been told that we're preparing for the last war and not the next one, and that we're not investing in future technologies. Yeah, the idea that this country is able to defend itself in the event of any hostile attack is just ridiculous. But this is the last in a long line of such farcical events with this government, with Keir Starmer, that one doesn't really know where to turn.
Yeah, it's very interesting when you heard what Al Carnes was saying to Julia earlier on about all of this, and also actually a very interesting court case today, the Court of Appeal ruling on the Palestine Action ban, and actually one of their activists was outside court. I just want to play this clip of what she said when it came to the fact that Palestine Action is now a prescribed organisation, so membership of or support for it is something that can send you to prison. This is what the activist said outside the Court of Appeal.
Lisa Minerva Locks. I'm going to be reading out a statement on behalf of Huda Amori, who is the claimant and the co-founder of Palestine Action. And this is her statement. We are surprised by today's judgment after a panel of senior judges on the High Court, including the President of the King's Bench Division, decisively ruled that the government acted unlawfully in prescribing Palestine Action because of the significant interference with the rights of freedom of expression and peaceful assembly. We will fight this all the way.
So it sounds as if they'll take it to the Supreme Court. Silcia, what do you make of this?
I do think that it's disappointing that support for the Palestinian cause seems to be equated to terrorism.
But it's not. You can support the Palestinian cause anytime you like. You can go out and say, I support the Palestinian people, and that's fine. This is Palestine Action, which is a group.
Yes, I do recognise that this is illegal, sort of against Palestine Action, the group, but I do think it sends a message in terms of people that do support or are against the genocide that's happening against the Palestinian people.
It's not a genocide.
I would say that it is.
Well, you're factually wrong.
We can agree to disagree. It's genocide.
OK, so there's 70,000 people, 50,000 pensions have been given to Hamas terrorists and their families. So of the 70,000, 72,000 who have died, which is a figure that's agreed by Israel, by Hamas and by the United Nations, 50,000 pensions have been given, therefore 20,000 civilians have died. I don't want any of those civilians to die. I don't want a single civilian to die. I don't want a single innocent person to die. But 20,000 people is not a genocide. A genocide is Darfur. A genocide is Sudan. As I said, a genocide is Nigeria. A genocide is the Holocaust. That's not a genocide.
It is a genocide.
It's absolutely not. It's absolutely not. In terms of where we are with Palestine Action, they're a group that took a sledgehammer to a policewoman's spine. That is what they do. They break into different places. They went to Bryce Norton, for example. They sabotaged defence equipment that was meant to defend our country. So surely support for that should be a criminal offence, no?
I do recognise, and I agree with you at the end of the day, that taking extreme action such as those you've listed, we can't tolerate that in terms of peaceful and free speech and all these things. There has to be parameters. So we can agree with that. My issue is more so to do with the criminalisation generally of people that support the Palestinian cause, and I think that that's unfair. I think that the protests and the way in which they're being clamped down, and I think...
How have they been clamped down?
I think that when people are going out on the streets, the heavy police sort of presence against them, it feels as though they're just waiting for something to erupt in a way that I think a lot of people that support the Palestinian people...
Policed?
That's not what I said.
Okay,
what I am saying, if you let me finish my sentence...
What is wrong with the heavy police presence for
I think they are anticipating...
They've happened. There have been nearly 40 of these protests have happened since the 7th of October.
Yeah.
The number of people arrested has been pretty low. So why is what's wrong with a heavy police presence?
I do think they're anticipating, I think they're anticipating some sort of... the word kind of escapes me here, but I just think that people that support Palestine doesn't necessarily mean that you support terrorism or you support Hamas, and yet it seems like in the media those things get equated, when in reality those are two very different things. I mean, I could speak on my personal... I don't support Hamas, but I do support the right to Palestinian civilians, innocent children and babies not being blown up in terms of a collective responsibility because people are angry at Hamas, the Israeli government angry at Hamas, and yet they target whole groups of civilian people. You can't look at the casualty figures and not tell me that it's not a genocide. And several UN bodies have said that.
No,
several UN bodies have recognised it.
They haven't, actually. So what's happened is you've had various UN rapporteurs like Francesca Albanese, who doesn't speak for the UN. She is a UN special rapporteur. She does reports that are into this, but she is not a UN body. She is a UN person, and there are no international criminal courts that have ruled.
Her opinion should be respected.
No,
she's a UN rapporteur.
She's an anti-Semite. She's a horrible anti-Semite who hates Israelis and hates Jews. And that is what she is, and she said those things on the record. And if she wants to sue me, she's very welcome to do so. Joe?
I'm actually finding this conversation really quite disturbing. Yes, I agree with the proscription of Palestine Action as a terror organisation. I definitely think they are. I think any organisation that proscribes violence is something that we should not have in this country. And, you know, against what you say is happening, you know, we have other protests, again, right to speak, where simply carrying the union flag is getting people stopped by the police, and it's like, well, hang on a second.
But no one's been stopped for just carrying the union flag. No one's been arrested for that. That's
precisely
that. That's not something that gets you arrested in this country.
There's been a similar police presence in some of these more peaceful marches.
Well, there've been a similar number of arrests at the United Kingdom marches as there have been at some of the more recent pro-Palestinian marches. So obviously people are innocent until proven guilty in both those senses. But there is a sense that there has been two-tier policing. I mean, Silsia's point that there's a heavy police presence at the pro-Palestinian marches, I'm happy enough for that. I'm also happy with there being a heavy police presence at the United Kingdom marches because I want them to be legal.
I'm happy with a heavy police presence anywhere. It's the fact that actually you get arrested far less on the one than you do on the other.
Do you agree with that, Silsia?
I haven't seen the figures, so I couldn't speak to that.
OK. There's a bit of breaking news, and that is that the captain of a Russian Shadow Fleet tanker intercepted by British troops in a UK first has been charged with contravening sanctions. The 38-year-old Indian national was arrested earlier, while around 24 other people on board are assisting with the investigation led by the National Crime Agency. The ship remains anchored off the coast of Weymouth after its seizure at the weekend. Lots of people... Oh, sorry, Joe, do you want to talk about this?
Can they claim asylum?
We'll see. Stephen in Manchester says, thank you for challenging your guest who referred to genocide in Gaza. That's Silsia, who is with us. There's no genocide by any objective measure, says Stephen. Silsia obviously disagrees with that. Richard in Lancashire says, well done keeping your cool with your guest claiming Gaza's genocide is a challenging debate with uninformed people, but you do very well. I don't think Silsia is uninformed at all. I think she's very informed. Actually, we just happen to disagree on that point. Robbie says a similar point. I think we've probably read out enough of those. We'll talk in just a second, actually, about Andy Burnham and a universal basic income and whether that is something that you support. I'd love to hear from people on the social media ban as well, 0344 499 1000. We can also see a photo of a cat that went on to a stage. Romeo and Juliet was happening. Actually, can we see the clip now? Is that all right? For those who are listening on the radio, I will narrate the clip so you can see if you're watching, and I'll narrate it for you if you're listening to the radio. Romeo lies dying and the cat starts playing with his hair and indeed licking his hair. This is in Turkey and it happened a couple of days ago. So the cat completely getting in the way there. Poor old Romeo. Julia's trying to drag him along there And in fact, he wouldn't be dying there because Julia's still alive. She's distraught. She then takes her own life. He does too. Sorry for destroying the end of the Romeo and Juliet for you, but that's Shakespearean tragedy for you. The cat then gets up on a little table and then just sits there. So there we are, Romeo and Juliet, which is something that people are talking about. Wherefore art thou, tuna? We'll talk about that in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk.
I'm genuinely disgusted when people continue to point out failure after failure after failure and do not provide balanced analysis of the deliverable of services like the police. What I don't see from reform is them standing next to some of these people that they continually criticise and saying, actually, they've made a mistake here. There is a requirement for a review and we must get through it. But I'd also like to thank the police for doing an excellent job at stopping the riots, doing this, breaking this criminal gang, doing the hard work they do day in, day out. And I think we take it for granted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to David in Canterbury, who's been in touch and says, don't forget to ask people who talk about Palestinian genocide what they think of our own heavy bombing of German civilians in the 1944-1945. Was this genocide? Well, it's interesting, David, you mentioned that because Churchill's great regret, he said the worst thing he ever did was to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I was actually reading about that recently, and I don't know if he used the word genocide, but he certainly regretted it and said it was the worst thing he ever did. But still, he and Truman did that together, but it ended the war. So actually, did it save lives? I mean, these are big decisions I'll never have to make. They're very, very difficult things. Joe has a thought on this.
Did you watch it on YouTube?
I didn't watch it on YouTube. I was reading it. Read it in an actual book, believe it or not. So there we are.
YouTube would have told you too.
Well,
Educational.
It would have. It would have. Joe Wheeler and Silcia Manwa with us on the debate test. When were you Labour councillor, Silcia?
I was for 3 years. I just lost in the most recent May elections.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's it. Did you stand again?
Yes, I did.
Okay, well, commiserations, nonetheless. Let's talk about another Labour figure, Andy Burnham. He's hoping to be elected on Thursday. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there. And he has said that vulnerable people could be given a basic income that is 5 times what they receive on benefits if he becomes Prime Minister. What do you think of this, Silcia? What do you think of this as an idea?
I think in principle it does make sense in terms of reducing people from the poverty line. I think UK families, we've got an article here saying it will drop from 16% to 4% in terms of poverty, especially with children and the elderly, which I think is overwhelmingly positive. I do think that the question of the welfare bill and how it's being, where they're getting that money from and how it's being spent, there are some valid questions which people rightly have, but I do agree with the principle of what this is trying to do, especially when we're tackling large issues like homelessness, which is still a massive issue in the UK, particularly in cities, but also outside of it. It is one idea, but I do recognise and welcome, I guess, some of the critiques that are coming through.
With the welfare bill so high,
yeah,
if you're actually increasing welfare, is that something that's going to be... It might be popular with people who, Labour Party members who Andy Burnham wants to convince to make him Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party, but will it be popular with others as well, especially those who Labour are fighting?
Yes, I think it will cut through, I think, irrespective of party allegiances. I think the divide is probably more to do with class or socioeconomic background, because at the end of the day, some of these welfare reforms are not going to benefit certain sections of society, and they're probably the ones who are going to be the most vocal critics. Nevertheless, I do think that the principle of it is something that I welcome.
Joe, what do you make of a universal basic income?
I'm staggered. I'm staggered, and the whole thing is so much based on might be. This guy, Carl Wiederquist, an economist, says that the official poverty line would drop from 16% to 4%. Yeah, no backup to that. To tackle poverty, we need to understand that poverty is predominantly a lack of cash. Well, yes.
Yes, that is what poverty is. Yes, well done.
Without a basic income, there is no universal right to live a decent life, but why would we hand it to anybody? Sorry, not why would we, why are we handing it to anybody? I mean, we all know that the social care system, which was set up and it was brilliant in its time to help out those who were genuinely in need, to stop children starving, stop families starving, to stop them freezing to death, have clothes to put on. But, you know, it was supposed to be a basic provision, not something that allowed them to live at a level at which other workers could not. So at the moment we have a situation where people in receipt of benefits can live a better life than those who are working their socks off. Alarm Clock Britain.
Yeah.
This is
and there's certainly for some people that is the case. It depends often on how many kids you have and all the rest of it. Is that right, Silcia?
I think that the benefit system, or the welfare system in general, it is broken in terms of there's more incentive for some people to be on benefits than it is to be in work. But I don't necessarily think that it's right to villainise those people, but rather look at this systemically in terms of why are we living in a country and why does the economy function in such a way that it would be better for you to get benefits than be in work. I do think that is a problem.
And everything that is wrong with our society, I fundamentally believe, comes down to two men. One is Tony Blair, the other is George Osborne. And George Osborne cut Ian Duncan Smith off at the knees financially when he wanted to do universal credit properly, to always incentivise work. That was completely the wrong thing to do, and boo George Osborne. Joe?
We are now into a situation where we've got second and third generation families who have never worked and never want to. You know, if you're giving this UBI, whatever it is.
Yeah, Universal Basic Income, yeah.
Where is the incentive to train for anything, to finish your education, to achieve, to train in a career or take on some kind of apprenticeship? You know, where is the incentive to succeed? Why would you? Because, you know, from what I see, what I hear, there is a very high proportion of this country now that feels they are simply working to pay these higher taxes for people who are sat on their jolly old backsides doing nothing.
And we hear that a lot from our viewers and listeners. Just before we go to the news, I just want to bring you the story of the cat that got off its backside and got onto a stage. This was in Turkey. We can look at this clip now. Romeo and Juliet was playing in Turkey, and Romeo is lying there. The cat seemingly dead, and the cat is playing with the actor's hair and scratching him and basically being a total menace. Ginger cat there, and Juliet is sort of dragging him away. The cat then sort of loses interest and gets up on a little table that is there. Juliet, I should say, is absolutely distraught. The cat completely rolling with a punch and getting on the table. Apparently the cat came back to rehearsals as well today. What do you make of this, Silcia?
And I think it's hilarious, to be honest. I mean, admittedly, I'm more of a dog person than a cat person. I know. But I know a lot of cat lovers. I know you're one of them.
Absolutely.
It's an adorable video, 100%.
It is really good. I mean, people got more than they bargained for when they went to see Romeo and Juliet.
I think they did. The funny thing is the cat is absolutely immune to the emotion of it. Juliet's there sobbing away as, you know, her heart's desire breathes his last, and the cat's going, well, I'll go and sit on this stage then. Yeah, whatever.
Have a bit of a rest. Yeah. Wherefore art thou, tuna?
Where are the dreamies? Yeah,
where are the dreamies?
Bring them on.
Exactly. Well, thank you both very much indeed for joining us. What do you think of the cat as well? I do think, I mean, Cats and Shakespeare, maybe that's another book, I don't know. Silcia Manuel is a former Labour councillor, and Joe Wheeler is sort of does everything. I mean, you're a political commentator, etiquette expert, celebrant, weather forecaster, collector of
steam engines.
Yeah, you've got a steam engine now, haven't you?
And vacuum.
And 12, let's not forget the 12 vacuum cleaners. Yeah, never a dull moment with Joe Wheeler. Never goes home and says, do you know what, I had a really boring day today. That never happens. Silcia, great to see you. We'll see you again soon, and thank you to everybody who has contributed. We'll come to more of your calls, text, tweets and voice notes in just a few minutes' time. We're also going to speak to Lewis Oakley, who's a father of three, he's a broadcaster. Lots of people talking about this social media ban and what you think and how it affects your family, your kids, your grandkids, whatever you want to say, however old you are, as long as you get parental permission if you're under 18. 2018. I'd love to hear from you. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll get you on the air. We'll talk to you about all these different issues because there's so much to talk about what Starmer wants to do and what effect it is going to have. So stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Keir Starmer says he wants to ban social media for under 16s. We'll speak to a father of three to find out what he thinks. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Parental autonomy. How does it affect real teenage life? And what about YouTube and the things that are banned? Some are, some aren't. Clearly, Blue Sky won't be banned, but Twitter will. So what's going on there? We'll talk about Andy Burnham and whether he could give younger vulnerable people a basic income that is 5 times what they receive in benefits. That's if he becomes Prime Minister. Also, the US and Iran have agreed a deal to end the war. And was Russia behind the arson attacks targeting the Prime Minister at his former home and his car? Very, very interesting, and lots to talk about on all of that. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or a WhatsApp voice note or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. So thank you for all of those that have come in so far. We'll get to you as soon as we can. Also, if you're a younger person, if you're 16, 17, 18, around that sort of age, you do need parental permission to come on the air, but we'd love to hear from you if that's possible. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk. Lots of people getting in touch about my exchange with the guest, Silcia, a little bit earlier on. Keith in Nottingham says, absolutely brilliant to put facts to the Labour councillor about the Palestinian protests. However, I find it incredible how Labour Party members just don't accept facts. They don't accept facts about Palestine. They don't accept facts about what a woman is. Dealing with Labour is like eating soup with a fork, says Keith. Well, I enjoyed talking to Silcia, even if I do believe she is wrong anyway. And Mike in Lincoln says Burnham's idea of a universal basic income might cut through with Labour, the membership, but the people of Makerfield who get up when the alarm clock goes off and go to work work will not be appreciative of this terrible use of the taxes they pay. A misstep by Burnham, I think, says Mike in Lincoln. Thanks also to Natasha in Switzerland, who says the problem is it's fine to express yourself, but Palestine action broke a policewoman's vertebrae and military equipment. That's a crime no matter why you do it. Tasha also talking about the cat on the stage, says the cat was the best actor on the stage. And Joanna says Romeo did well, an amazing actor. The cat was claws and teeth in the actor. He didn't even flinch. And Angie says this is so Cat of the Week. Bring it back. We're not bringing back Cat of the Week, but thank you for that nonetheless. On perhaps more serious matters, the social media ban is something the Prime Minister was talking about today in a press conference. This is what Keir Starmer said.
Social media is making children unhappy. It's making it easier for bullies to harass and abuse them. And it could even be harming their mental health, exposing them to content that is dangerous, because that's what grabs the attention. It's designed to be addictive. Features like the infinite scroll. They're designed to lock you in for hours. There's an opportunity cost to that. It stops children doing their homework, reading, playing with their friends outside, going to bed at a decent hour. But these are the activities that help a child develop into an adult. We know how important they are. We just never thought that something would come along to threaten them.
The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, speaking earlier today. Well, Lewis Oakley is with me in the studio. Hello, how are you?
Hello, good to see you.
Yeah, Lewis is a father of 3 and a broadcaster. How old are your kids? One of them 17, is that right?
17, and then I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Okay.
All the challenging ages.
Yeah, exactly. You haven't made life easy for yourself there. Tell us what you think of what Starmer has said there. Do you think this will work? Your 17-year-old will be a bit older, but what's been your 17-year-old's experience with all of this?
Well, I mean, this is the big thing, because I think that he is really taking away parents' autonomy here and how they want to parent. I actually don't like the idea that my 18-year-old will get social media for the first time when they hit 18, and also, you know, start drinking at the same time. You know,
I think when he's 17 they get it, because under 16s this ban is for.
Yeah, that's sort of restricted access. But in any event, I like that I have been able to navigate with my teenagers social media when they've come home and they've seen, you know, manosphere content. Well, I've seen this. Like, okay, well, let's talk about it. You know, I actually think that it's good to be able to navigate it with them, and it's not something in isolation. I've seen other parents where they say, look, I'm going to let you have this, but I'm going to be checking it every night. I want to see who's messaging you. Or some people say, look, I trust you, but if you see anything that worries you on these social media platforms, you need to talk to. If anyone threatens you, all of that kind of stuff, it's parenting.
Everything that you've talked about is good parenting. There's a heck of a lot of bad parenting out there, and there are a lot of people who are a lot of children who are essentially being parented by their phone, by parents who say, off you go, on your phone, there you are with your screen time, there you go.
Yeah, principally I don't really agree with, because there are some bad parents in the world, we've got to do this for everyone. There are bad parents that do all kinds of things. We don't say, well, we're going to have to take all the children off all the parents because there's some bad parent. No, let me parent the way I want to parent. Let other parents parent the way that they want to parent. I think what was really interesting as well is actually looking on social media, some of the comments today saying, hold on, like what you are calling social media, like we need to get into the real specifics of this. A lot of people talking about YouTube. Obviously, this show is put out on YouTube, but a lot of people saying this is an educational resource, and I know firsthand, you know, my 17-year-old has used YouTube for revision. Don't understand the concept. Do you understand it? No, I haven't got a clue. Let's go on YouTube and find someone that does.
So what does your 17-year-old, sorry, male, female?
Male.
Male. What does he think of this? Well, have you talked to him about this ban?
We haven't, because it was only announced last night, and I didn't see him last night. So
okay.
He was out with friends. But I mean, I know what he'll think, because, you know, his social media, I'm really impressed now by what the kids know. I am not only an adult, I'm someone that comes on national TV once or twice a week to talk about political stories. Sometimes my 17-year-old is schooling me. He's telling me, did you know this policy was announced? I thought, what? No, I didn't know that. They're Googling it, and it's right. They're actually more informed than ever. They're watching short documentaries on certain things. They're learning about history. They're learning about space. So
but they're also looking at stuff that's really harmful as well. So is there a halfway house here? Is there a way to say, this is the good stuff that will inform you and will help you with your homework, and this is the harmful stuff that they've tried to ban previously? The VPN stuff has taken over that. I mean, is this almost an admission of failure?
No, well, no, I think that we just need to be persevering. I think what Keir Starmer's doing here, he's, you know, bringing a chainsaw to a problem that probably needed a scalpel. We're almost there, and there are a lot of companies now that are set up that are helping with this. We know that there are parental controls built into most devices. But there are also companies now going a lot further where it's called network level protection, where it's actually a specific SIM card for children, so they can't bypass things with a VPN. Like, we're almost there with getting this down. There's a lot of parents now that say, look, I'm just going to give them a brick phone. Like, lots of parents seeing, oh, you know what, the parental controls work for me, or it's the network level controls that work for me, or the brick. There are so many things where parents are working this out, and I think that the thing we've got to think about, it's not just oh, blanket ban, that's fine. Like, social media is still going to exist. We have to think about the competitive disadvantage we're putting kids in this country at. If other kids are on YouTube learning stuff, if they are understanding how social media works, you know, we're putting them at a disadvantage. Like, this is the world they're going to grow up into, whether you like it or not. It's on parents.
Can the parents
help them navigate.
But surely
this.
the parents can just set up, if they have a laptop or a tablet or whatever, under their own logins and say, right, if you want to watch a documentary on history, you can do that. I mean, that's going to happen a lot, isn't it? And also, I just wonder how parents actually are going to have that conversation, because we've seen some of the footage today. There was a very interesting clip on the BBC, I don't know if you saw it, of the young girl who spoke very, very well and said she was going to stare at a wall for 9 hours a day because she had nothing else to do. I expect she'll find some things. But if you have, for example, a kid with ADHD or an autistic kid who doesn't understand that you've got to take this away, it could be a very difficult conversation to have with them.
Oh, absolutely. And not just that, like, kids that are in rural areas where the social media is the only way that they really connect with their friends. I do a lot of work in the LGBT. There's a lot of people that are like, I don't know anyone gay, and actually it's the first way that they find other people like them. Gaming as well. A lot of kids will turn to gaming as a way to connect with their friends. They can't see them. My eldest was in hospital a few years ago and couldn't see his friends, but he could go on the gaming app and almost feel like he was still involved. There's a lot of benefits to it as well as harm. And I'm not here to underplay the harms. There are harms, of course. I just think it's better that parents manage those harms themselves. I think it's better that we have the technology and the controls to manage those harms, rather than Keir Starmer coming in and saying this. And I think a lot of the reaction today, just people really feeling, and this is, you know, a trend with Keir Starmer, like, I don't believe you. I don't believe what you're saying. I don't believe you actually care about the children. You know, a lot of people saying this is all about digital ID. This is about people wanting to...
Do you not believe the Prime Minister actually wants to deal with online harms and actually keep kids safe? Do you not think he has that in his mind when he's doing this?
I really don't.
Why not?
Why not? I mean, this is a Prime Minister that, you know, look at how he handled the grooming gangs. You know, that was harm to children that he could have gone a lot further on, didn't.
He set up an inquiry.
Well, after a lot of hand-stringing, it just wasn't his instinct. And I think this is the thing with this Prime Minister. A lot of people say, I don't really know what your principles are. I don't know what you stand for. I mean, how many U-turns have we had on so many things? He doesn't seem a principled man, where I could look at this and say, oh, you know what? He's really over the top about kids' protection. That just is what it is. And so for me, I really feel that I just don't believe it. A lot of people say, look, this is about digital ID. This is about basically saying, well, you've got to prove your age to access social media. And if you have to prove your age, if you have to link it with your identity, then all of a sudden, and don't forget, we do live in a country where people have been arrested for tweets, where we have had people debanked. The digital ID stuff, people do not like, and that is going to be a reality of bringing in this policy. So a lot of people feel that this is Trojan horse. I mean, who might say? I don't know the man's mind.
What about the blue sky aspect? It's part of it, but X isn't, for example. Is that?
It's
very interesting. How cynical can we be about that, do you think?
Well, I have been looking into the details. I actually can't find anything specific that they've actually said about Blue Sky. I don't know if you have, but I was looking into it because obviously that's a lot of claims online. A lot of people saying, oh, you know, Blue Sky is left-wing, so, you know, that's why he wants to keep it. I would say, and not to put a tinfoil hat on, I just think, you know, everything considered what we've seen from politics, I would say I want to know if you've got any vested interests in Blue Sky,
all right.
because we've seen that before. So I would just say I want everything on the table. Why would you allow Blue Sky? And you're also going to force more people to go to it.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate you coming into the studio. That is Lewis Oakley there, father of 3 and a broadcaster. I want to speak to Will Guyett now, a tech expert, about what he thinks. Will, what do you make of this ban?
Well, let me tell you firstly that Blue Sky doesn't count because it's actually got far too few users in the UK. It's not deemed a platform of consideration. So that's why it's not being included at the moment.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Well, this is the issue, Peter, that the government has kind of gone and revealed half of everything today. As the tech expert here, I've been asking for information about various parts of this situation. What are they doing with YouTube? Is it the same as in Australia? How are they going to age gate the chatbots. None of this information is forthcoming at the moment, and I keep being told we're going to hear more in July. So that is part of the problem. Some of this is blunt. These are blunt tools in order to challenge something, in order to try and tackle an issue that's a problem. And anybody that truly understands this situation and the scourge and the problem that social media and the internet can cause for child safety and online safety to a group of people would not be saying this is all about a digital land grab for ID and all of those kinds of things. People can be severely and seriously impacted by what happens online, and we do need to do something to protect those individuals.
And what is that needs to be done, Will? Because my fear, not being a tech expert, and you are, my fear is that the legislation, the technology that government can talk about or saying we're going to ban this algorithm or whatever, that will never keep up with the advance of the technology, will it?
No, it won't. And Keir Starmer has been very clear with that today. I've demonstrated in various places, Peter, that if you've got a VPN set up, you can change the location of your phone from Swindon to Sweden in under a second. And that would enable you to circumvent pretty much everything that's currently in scope to enable those bans of particular platforms. The same has been happening in Australia too. So there are I can understand fully why the government is trying this. I don't think it's about controlling everything that everybody else sees on the internet. I definitely don't think it's a left versus right thing. This is about trying to keep a certain group of the population safe. And in order to do that, you actually have to encroach on other people's liberties. And that's the challenge.
Is there a way not to ban the whole thing, Will? Because there isn't. That's just impossible. So even when you have 14-year-olds who are really, really interested in, Soviet Russia, and they want to watch some documentaries on YouTube, or they want to find out about that, we can't allow them to do that.
Well, no, but you're misinterpreting it. Young 14-year-olds can still see documentaries on YouTube. They're not banned. This is what's not clear about what's happened today. What will happen is those under the age of 16 will not be able to have a YouTube account. If it's like Australia, which we believe it is because the government hasn't confirmed otherwise yet, people will still be able to go to YouTube and view videos and view content. They won't be able to comment. They won't be able to share them in the usual ways of doing stuff within the platform. They won't be able to have their own login anymore. And arguably, Peter, that actually causes more potential harm, because if somebody, like you say, somebody is a student that's got really interested in history or something, and it's serving them suitable content in the world of history via the algorithm and the recommendation engine, if that's removed, they're just going to see what everybody else sees on the platform. So it kind of almost feels at cross purposes to where we're at. But at the same time, I just think we need a little bit more clarity on a lot of what this means today. There's been an awful lot said, but it doesn't actually say much at all. And some of this is pure theatrics. The idea that you can stop and control young people successfully with the current tools that are available to the government and Ofcom just simply isn't true.
So will they just find ways around it then, do you think?
Well, there's two things to look at here. I think young people will use VPNs and other ways of circumventing systems, getting parents, getting adults, getting friends, older friends to set up accounts for them. But if, as in Australia, no fines have been levied at the social networks, and therefore they're not really feeling too pushed in order to do anything, but it looks like a performance, and they're telling the government is saying they're taking it seriously, and the social networks are taking it seriously, nothing is in fact changing. And that's arguably what's happening in Australia at the moment. 70% of kids reckon they're still using social media like they were before, and we're not moving quickly enough. And interestingly, somebody I spoke to in Australia today, a broadcaster in Australia, was saying the really important thing about this for Australian kids is the generations that come after those at the moment. So not the ones who are currently using online services or trying to skirt around them. It's the 7 and 8 year olds that haven't been introduced to this stuff yet. Having an intervention at state level actually might enable them to not repeat some of the issues we found with addiction, spending time on the platform, some of the other stuff that we're seeing, which is real, like kids, spending more time on the platform than sleeping. I go back to one of the things your previous contributor said, and I agree with completely. Parents have to do a lot more. This isn't just about the government or the tech companies coming to account here. Parents have to ensure if kids have been using platforms, they've got to have the right ages. They should be using the parental controls and things that are already available to them. You can't just say, oh, it's Mark Zuckerberg's fault. You should be doing more of it yourself.
OK, Will, thank you very much indeed. We also heard from Lewis Oakley there as well. Will is a tech expert. Lewis is a broadcaster and a father of 3. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. We'll take some calls after the break. Stay with us here on Talk.
I'm genuinely disgusted when people continue to point out failure after failure after failure and do not provide balanced analysis of the deliverable of services like the police. What I don't see from reform is them standing next to some of these people that they continually criticise and saying, actually, they've made a mistake here. There is a requirement for a review and we must get through it. But I'd also like to thank the police for doing an excellent job at stopping the riots, doing this, breaking this criminal gang, doing the hard work they do day in, day out. And I think we take it for granted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you, everybody who's been in touch. Let's hear some voice notes. First one from Claire on social media.
I don't understand why the government feel the need to be stepping in and banning this social media for under 16-year-olds. I've had a teenager. He's recently turned 18. I don't control anything on his phone anymore. He'll come to me if he's worried about anything. But when he was younger, I had an app on my phone that could lock all the apps on his phone. Basically, his phone shut down when I told it to. So whether that was bedtime, whatever, if he hadn't done his homework, I'd lock his phone. It's down to parenting. It's not down to the government to control stuff like this. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous, and parents should be more responsible and take more control for their own kids.
Thank you for that. Really interesting. Claire, let's hear from Dom.
Keir Starmer's social media ban. It's interesting, all about the children. Yet this is the same party leader that refuses to investigate child grooming gangs. It's remarkable, isn't it?
Quite a number of tweets coming through as well. We're still allowed to look at Twitter, so I'm going to do that as long as I can. Les says, given Mr Starmer seems to be in the mood for social media bans, how about all politicians, including the current cabinet, are banned from posting online unless they personally post the message provable by biometrics? No advisors or activists allowed to post on their behalf. By this action, we can see the intelligence, or more likely the lack of, from the politicians. Amy says the government wants overnight curfews on social media for 16 and 17-year-olds because they don't think they're responsible enough to come offline at a reasonable time, but want to give them the vote. Also, in both Scotland and Wales, 16 and 17-year-olds can already vote in their elections. Thanks for that reminder. I can't believe, says Ultimate Boldy, great name, I can't believe Dad Starmer all of a sudden has our children's best interest at heart. He doesn't have their parents' best interest at heart. It's a great distraction. And reaction to Silcia, who was on earlier on, Eric says, who is on the awful kid on Peter Cardwell show? She's 22, she's a woman, begging to be controlled and told what to do rather than think for herself and to have everyone similarly restricted. Is this the product of our left-wing education system? Because if this is our future, humanity is done for. Robin Gravesend says, why does Starmer always sound as if he's preaching with his speeches? Such slow delivery, as if we can't understand anything quicker. And Angie says, OK, you're not bringing back Cat of the Week, but do you know anyone who's written a book about cats or cats in politics? Angie, I don't know anyone who's done that, so I'm sorry, I can't help you. Stuart is in London and has given me a shout on 0344 499 1000. Stuart, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good to speak to you again. I always love listening to you on the radio.
You too, Stuart.
I don't know, in reality, they're actually going to stop it. I mean, my friend's kid, he's 15, he's 6'4.5", 17.5 stone of muscle, this kid. You hardly call him a child. And I said to him the other day, I said, well, you won't be able to watch all your porn channels anymore. He said, why not?
Goodness me.
I've never seen before. They get round, they've got VPNs. These kids can hack into anything you want.
They're often very aware of exactly how to get the content they want, shall we say, far more so than many adults. I mean, I wouldn't have a clue how to set up a VPN, for example. I'm sure I could work it out on if I Googled it or whatever, but I don't have one. I don't know how to get one. And whereas I know there are many teenagers and younger people as well who know exactly how to do that.
Well, Pete, their brains are wired to it. They're wired to it. The only way to stop it is, it's up to the woman said before, that lady said before, it's up to the parents what their children watch, and up to the parents to control what their children watch. You just don't buy them a smartphone.
Well, but I mean, I'm going to challenge you slightly on that, Stuart, because I remember a friend of mine who's a parent of 2 teenagers saying they have to be on smartphones because everything is organised on smartphones. Their kids' school, teachers have WhatsApp groups that they send to the kids and to the parents. Their football, their dancing, their ballet, whatever, is all organised on WhatsApp groups. That's the way it's done.
I know, you didn't let me finish. I was just going to finish there.
Sorry?
The only problem is that if they haven't got, with a smartphone, at least you know where your kids are as well, which is a very...
Well, if you have one of the tracking apps on it, yeah.
Yeah, but that woman before, she said a good idea. She controlled what her son watched and TV, so I think she could switch it off. So there are ways to do it.
But how many parents do that, Stuart, though?
Margaret Thatcher said, a very interesting years ago, once you invent something, you can't uninvent it.
Yeah.
How are you going to... I just don't know how, in reality, I don't think this is anything, as that woman said before. They really give a damn about these kids anyway. I think they just want to actually get ID out, so every one of us have got to give our ID to what we watch on social media. We know what they're like for freedom of speech, this government. They're like they're worse than Russia. We need more people for what you said on social media than Russia do.
Well, we don't. No, we don't. I mean, I know you're just talking generally, but we do arrest. We do arrest far too many people for what they put on social media, but we don't arrest more people than that for like all other crime.
Well, the figure I've read, what we do. We arrest more than anyone in the world.
That may well be the case, but we don't arrest more people for social media than any other crime, do we? Actually, tell you what, Stuart.
Not other crimes, not other crimes.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying what we do on social media was what I'm saying.
Okay. Stuart, listen, thanks for your points. Really appreciate them. That's Stuart in London. Good to talk to you again. Danny says, my daughter is autistic and has major issues with social situations. Social media is the only way she gets to socialise with her friends, even though this is far from ideal. Starmer is taking this away and is now isolating her. I am disgusted, says Danny. Richard in Ayrshire says, I was suspended from Twitter years back due to a lefty pylon and I couldn't be bothered appealing it. I then discovered 4chan and I'm forever grateful for that suspension now as my eyes have been truly opened to censorship. Peter says, ban kids from the internet so they can't report when they have been abused by rape gangs. Typical Labour move that actually endangers kids rather than keeping them safe. Well, they're not banned from the internet, they're just banned from social media. They still can report all of those things, of course, but perhaps not as easily as previously. Lou in Manchester says, yes, we want children to go out and play. We want teenagers to socialise. Where are they going to go that isn't going to charge them for the pleasure, says Lou. Well, certainly, look, there are open spaces, there are fields, there are places the kids can go. And one thing that really worries me, Lou, is that there are loads of parents who just don't allow their kids out. They are, of course, stranger danger and all the rest of it. But I do think there are a lot of... Look, I'm not a parent. What do I know? But I just find a lot of people who are absolutely terrified of allowing their kids any risk, any kind of going off by themselves. The kind of childhood that I had that was, I had a load of freedom, and I think it really benefited me, and that just doesn't seem to exist anymore. People seem to really, really worry about where their kids are at all times, and I suppose even if you have a phone you can track them and they're over the fields and far away, at least you know where they are. Brenda is in Falkirk and wants to talk about Palestine Action. Brenda, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, well, I want to know where do the Palestine Action get the money to fight all these court actions? Because they don't come cheap, do they?
It's a very good point, Brenda, and I do think all of the funding needs to be looked into properly. And actually, that could be an offence itself if you end up supporting Palestine Action through money, and that's a really good point, Brenda.
Well, if they made them pay for all the damage they caused, that would bankrupt them, wouldn't it?
Very good point. What do you think of this ruling today?
Yeah, it's the right decision, and this should end here. There should be no more appeals.
Yeah, well, they'll see if they can take it to the Supreme Court, but they'd have to do that on a sort of technicality. It'll be very interesting to see. Brenda, thanks for your call. Great call. Totally agree with you. Sean says social media ban for under 16 because they care about the children. Tell that to the rape gang victims, deaf ears on that issue. Peter says, ask the MPs who voted against the rape gang inquiry what they think of the social media ban. After all, they voted against the rape gang inquiry and have no interest in our kids' safety. Loads of messages about this. Peter says the only dangerous content online comes from Downing Street and Keir Starmer himself. Kath says, Starmer's making me unhappy and damaging my mental health, so can he ban himself, please? Debbie says, I grew up in the 90s. On our social media was The Word or Eurotrash. Taking me back, Debbie. I wasn't old enough to watch them, but sneaked what would have happened then. Stormtroopers come around to take my telly out of my room. Max says the restriction of social media for under 16s is the precursor for further restrictions for all. Starmer and co don't like the idea of citizens having opinions and criticism on X and similar platforms. Loads of opinions coming into the building. Please keep them coming. We are the place people come to talk. We are the home of common sense, and I love hearing from you. Whatever your opinion is, however you want to express it, whatever you want to say, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We're going to talk about this universal basic income in just a second. This is something that Andy Burnham says could solve poverty in our society, but where does the money actually come from for universal basic income? Because it could be 5 times the welfare bill, which is itself 5 times the defence bill. We'll talk to a Labour commentator in just a second about all of that. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch. And one of the big issues that I know you're going to have plenty of opinions on, and you can let me know on 0344 499 1000, is about a universal basic income. This is an idea that Andy Burnham thinks could, in theory, work. It's a proposed basic income pilot in Greater Manchester. It would provide every individual with an unconditional and regular cash payment to cover necessities. It's not just a safety net, it's a springboard to build a stable life, because with additional income comes less stress and more time to take opportunities and be innovative. There are 160 basic income pilots across the world. They apparently increase employment, financial well-being, housing and food security, mental health, and make care much easier. In Kenya, which is the largest and longest UBI, Universal Basic Income, trial in the world, it has shown people are more productive, can save more money, start more businesses, and have better mental health. But where does the money come from in the first place? And the welfare bill, as we all know, is totally out of control. Well, Sebastian Salek is a former Labour councillor and political commentator. In fact, he's going to be on the debate desk tomorrow night, as he usually is on a Tuesday evening. Sebastian, what do you make of this?
Well, the first thing to say is I don't think it's going to happen because, as you laid out, it's in the manifesto for Manchester from last year. Not to say he'll take it into government, but I do like the idea of UBI, of Universal Basic Income. I think it solves a lot of problems societally. It gives you a lot of freedom. It's one of those policies that can appeal to anyone. Even the libertarians can get behind it. You can start a business, you can leave an abusive partner, you can work in the community, you can take more time to find the right job for you. There's so much flexibility that it can create. But as you allude, of course, the big problem is where's the money going to come from? So it's maybe not something that we should be pushing right now. But there is an argument to raise taxes to make it happen. And then it becomes a more progressive form of taxation.
That's where you lose me in terms of raising taxes, but we can come back to that in a second. How does it actually work? Is it literally everybody gets a certain amount of money? And how much is that money when it comes to places where this has worked, Sebastian?
Yeah, so it really varies. So the idea is that everybody gets the same amount of money every week or every month. And it's usually in those trials, it's been somewhere around a few £100 a month mark. Now, it could be lower, it could be higher.
And is this in addition or to other benefits? Because there are something like 85 different taxes, a similar number of benefits, a really complicated system. Could this actually just sort of change the system to be very, very simple?
Yeah, so in theory, it could swallow up a large part of the benefit system because you're getting that basic income and that would count as your benefits. And that's where some of the costs would come from as well. It wouldn't cover all of it, but we pay out a lot in benefits, as you know, and that would go towards UBI and sending it out universally.
So every single person gets a certain amount of money. I mean, what if you don't need it? What if you're someone who is, you know, Alan Sugar getting money, whereas someone who's 22 and doesn't have a job getting the same amount of money?
Yeah, well, the idea is that it's universal, and that's what we saw around, for example, winter fuel. That is, in a sense, a form of universal payment. If you're above a certain age, you get it regardless of your income. And yes, you could say that if you're very, very rich, you don't need this money, but it's up to them what they want to do with it. It's kind of in the spirit of the policy that it's universal. The second you start means testing it, it stops becoming universal, and it's essentially any other benefit, just an incredibly generous one.
Labour seem to be falling out about this already. There'll be plenty of people in your own party who don't think this is a good idea. When it comes to the cost of it as well, let's tackle that head on. You'd have to raise taxes yet further, and people are, I mean, there's crippling taxation already for so many people.
You would, which is why I think now probably isn't the environment for it. We have bigger fish to fry, don't we, politically at the moment? But it's an aspiration, and what else can you do in politics but to dream and hope for incredible things to happen? So it's something I'd like to see us work towards. And you know what? I probably wouldn't rule out increasing taxes to make this happen, because you're giving those who are lower middle earners that money back. So you're increasing taxes on the wealthiest, who can afford it the most.
Andy Burnham says he will, it's said that Andy Burnham would launch an immediate leadership challenge after his victory. I mean, I think he's probably going to wait to be at least sworn as an MP first, should he win, which there's no guarantee of course, and lots of different polls saying he will win, but very, very small sample size. If he challenges Keir Starmer, when should his moment be, do you think? Should it be quick, Sebastian?
I mean, if I were advising Andy Burnham, I'd probably tell him to go pretty quickly. You want to strike while Starmer is weak. We know that Starmer is probably going to take part in that leadership contest to try and defend his position. And now is a pretty good time to go for it. Politics moves incredibly quickly, as you know. We never know what the picture is going to look like in a couple of weeks or months. So if the opportunity is there, you should always take it.
Really interesting stuff, and just wonder what your thoughts are on the social media ban, Sebastian, because the Prime Minister's been talking about it today. Lots of different views, many people pretty angry about it, actually, our viewers and listeners who don't support it. I just wonder what you think.
Yeah, so look, I'm really happy he's talking about it. I think he's gone about it in the wrong way. I wouldn't have gone for a whole-scale ban because, look, you've got platforms like YouTube now that children or young people can't access. And I think that's a huge educational resource that I certainly enjoyed when I was younger. I'm sad to see others miss out. What I think we should be going for is content that is around the interest-based graph. So it's essentially content that is algorithmically given to you based on what your interests are. So if you look at TikTok or Instagram Reels, is that kind of thing. And if you can remove that or give the option for that to be suspended, even for adults as well, you can essentially turn back the clock on social media and make it look like it did 10 or 15 years ago, back when it was a lot safer, a lot more pleasant, the kind of social media I grew up with. And I think that's probably a healthy balance and a healthy place to be.
Do you think that's possible, though? Certainly when as Margaret Thatcher said, one of our guests pointed out earlier that she said you can't sort of uninvent something. Can we go backwards? Can we get these restrictions on this?
I think so, and the reason is because it's a global problem. Every country is grappling with this, and if we were to bandy together with our European neighbours, with our Anglophone friends across the world, you have a lot of bargaining power. That's a big, big market you represent, and you can go to these tech platforms and say, look, you do what we say, otherwise we are going to ban you. Whereas we've gone too far too fast on this, and we've lost that ability and that leverage, which is a shame, because I think there was a happy medium that was achievable.
Thank you, Sebastian. We'll see you tomorrow night on the debate desk. That's Sebastian Salek, their former Labour councillor and political commentator. Sean says, Sebastian, more tax, the same old ask him. I did, of course. And Dean in Aberdare says this UBI was trialled in Wales already, targeting vulnerable adults turning 18. You're right, but it's not, unless it's universal, we can't really know what's happening. Betty says 10 million people, 5 million civil and public servants, and 3 million pensioners who never worked already on universal income. There's only 10 to 20 paying private tax, the rest live off them. Very happy to give universal income to all those already on benefits, state employment or final salary pensions if we adjust the same levels as a trial country, £6,000 a year. Sebastian's a Trustafarian clown. I'm not sure he would agree with that. And another person says, look at the damage 2 years of furlough did to the UK, 50 years of debt, and Sebastian thinks it's a great idea. How about we tax benefits the same rate as workers? Well, of course, the furlough wasn't universal. And that is the point, I suppose, with the universal basic income. But of course, the issue with the benefit system at the moment is that it's 5 times the defence budget. Ian in Bishopton has some thoughts. He's a new caller. Ian, great to have you on the programme. What would you like to say? You're very welcome.
Yeah, good evening. Social Security, it's got out of control. Everybody's on it, and everybody that's working is working harder. They've done away with investigations into Social Security. I think they should bring these lads back into work again, the investigators, and see if these people really need Social Security. I'm behind them in shopping centres, and their baskets are full. I'm not talking about the ones who really need it. I'm not going down that road. I'd never go down that road.
No, and I'm with you, Ian, and there's no attempt to demonise people who genuinely need benefits or genuinely are disabled. My problem is people who can work and choose not to.
No, yeah. Okay. And it's a family thing. The whole family's on it. You've got the mum, you've got the dad, you've got the sons and daughters. They're all on it. But it's depriving people who should be on it.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Ian, and thank you for your call. First call, don't make it the last one. Suze has been in touch as well. Colour me shocked. Salek supports UBI. Who would have thought it? Millions more will choose not to work, like the millions already choosing not to work. I nearly fell off my chair when I used the winter fuel payment as an example. £200 off one annual payment cannot be compared to universal basic income, which would be monthly, and wake up Labour totally unaffordable. Loads of really interesting opinions coming through, and thank you for them. If you want to send me a WhatsApp or indeed a WhatsApp voice note, please do so, 10344 499 1000. That's the number for calls as well. Brenda, Ian, many others have given me calls this evening. We'll make sure that we get as many as we can on the air between now and 10. We're going to talk about whether the US and Iran war is over, and also Russia being allegedly behind the arson attacks targeting the Prime Minister in an investigation has revealed. So stay with us to get the information on that. I want your reaction too, of course. Plenty of time for calls, text, tweets and voice notes between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk.
I'm genuinely disgusted when people continue to point out failure after failure after failure and do not provide balanced analysis of the deliverable of services like the police. What I don't see from Reform is them standing next to some of these people that they continually criticise and saying, actually, they've made a mistake here. There is a requirement for a review and we must get through it. But I'd also like to thank the police for doing an excellent job at stopping the riots, doing this, breaking this criminal gang, doing the hard work they do day in, day out. And I think we take it for granted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Quite a number of people have been on the text in regard to what Sebastian Salek has been saying there. If you want to text in at 72222 with the word talk in your text, you can tweet me at talkTV as well. Matthew in Manchester says, I'm coming to the conclusion that Sebastian Salek comes on TV purely to troll taxpayers who are funding these mad ideas. The fact he's lost his council seat to Reform says everything. Woo, says Matthew. Sebastian says, Peter is one of the problems this country is how it has gotten Labour sheep. And Paul says, what happens if universal basic income isn't enough to cover ever-increasing costs? Would any shortfall mean additional benefits? Just piling handouts upon handouts. It is utter madness. They tried universal basic income in Estonia and the pilot failed, says Paul. So lots to think about in all of that, and we will of course talk about universal basic income as time goes on. I just want to hear a voice note from Stephen on the cat in the Shakespeare play on Romeo and Juliet on the stage.
Regarding the production of Romeo and Juliet in Turkey, the play will no longer be considered as a tragedy, but as a catastrophe.
A catastrophe. I see what you did there. Yes, many more puns can be made on Shakespeare. I would argue would be one as well. We're going to talk about more serious matters though, and that is the Iran war latest. Trump has said that ships are starting to move in the Hormuz Strait after the US-Iran deal. The US has also been dismayed, and Trump has been very critical of Benjamin Netanyahu when it comes to continuing Israeli attacks on Lebanon. Now, Israel would say that they have to do that because of the security threat from Hezbollah. We'll talk about that in just a second. But the headline really is that after 108 days, the US and Iran have agreed on a tentative peace framework for a deal to bring the war to an end. The idea is to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and halt the US naval blockade of Iran. The Pakistani Prime Minister has been talking about this. His country has been mediating what has gone on. He announced the deal would be officially signed in Switzerland on Friday. Now, the G7 is just across the Lake Geneva, actually, in Evian at the moment in France. So there are many parts of Switzerland, including Geneva, that there are lots of protests that are going to be there because Trump has landed in Switzerland. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Trump has said the Strait of Hormuz will open on Friday. He says, let the oil flow on Truth Social, and he's also claimed ships have started moving through the shipping lane. The evidence confirming some are indeed moving, but not many. Negotiations are continuing, though. A more expansive agreement, according to Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister, will be negotiated during a 60-day ceasefire period, which will include sanctions relief. And on Israel specifically, a small number of Israeli attacks have been reported in Lebanon. Its Defence Minister, Israel Katz, insisted Israel won't withdraw from Lebanon and Israel won't compromise on its security interests. Hezbollah hasn't carried out new attacks since the ceasefire announcement, and the UK and France are going to lead the operation to secure the Strait of Hormuz after the deal is signed, according to the French President Emmanuel Macron. Well, we'll come back to that story in just a second, as I understand that we have Rear Admiral Mike Hewitt, the former Pentagon official and ex-US Navy officer, will be joining us in just a second. But for the meantime, I want to go back to the calls. Jay is in Nuneaton and wants to talk about learning and communication and indeed social media in this ban. Jay, what are your thoughts on this? You're very welcome to the programme.
Hiya, Peter. Yeah, glad to be on.
Great to have you on, Jay.
Quite passionate about this. I'm on the ropes. I'm 50-50. We do have a lot of restrictions for my daughter and her phone, and control it and turn it off. And
do you feel you protect her already, Jay, for your daughter? How old is she?
Yeah, she's just turned 13, and before she got a phone, it was part of the deal. We've got like an in-home contract and rules that she has to agree to. She hands it in at night, and mum can control it. So
you sound like very responsible parents. I mean, you want to look after your kid, but you also want to make sure that they have. I mean, there's so many pressures that you want them to socialise through social media with their friends as well.
Yeah, we do. To be honest, the socialising is always. It's not always good, especially with teenage girls. So it can be very, very nasty. So we've not had good experiences with the socialising. That's why I said I'm 50-50. We would rather that they didn't have access to it, if I'm honest. So let me give you an example. When we do the school run and you see the kids at the bus stop, all they're doing is scrolling at their phone.
Yeah.
If social media didn't exist, what they would be doing is they would be talking to each other and say, oh, how was your weekend? What did you get up to? And they'd be laughing. And that's how deep, meaningful friendships are formed, through that power, face-to-face, the power of communication. And it's getting lost on the kids of today. That's why, especially teenage girls, they're falling out all the time because they don't have deep, meaningful friendships.
Don't teenage girls fall out all the time anyway? Isn't that what teenage girls do?
Yeah, they do. But let me give you another point. It's just giving them that time to think. So if you're on a long car journey and you're going on holiday to the South Coast, obviously the kids are in the back just on social media, YouTube, whatever, scrolling. But if that didn't exist and they were looking out the window, it gives them time to think. And when you have time to think, you think of things and use your imagination. And that's how inventions happen.
I agree with you, Jay, completely. And I think there are loads of kids that don't have or don't allow their imagination to develop, to make up stories, to make up games. And actually, being bored is a major part of childhood. I mean, there's a lot of routine in childhood. There's a lot of traipsing around, following your parents to shops or whatever. Certainly, I spent a lot of time in women's clothes shops, and my mother was a big shopper, and I spent a lot of time just sort of sitting there being bored, or maybe reading a book or whatever. And kids often don't have that these days.
No, they don't. They want everything. They want everything instantly, and they get used to that. They click of the button. They lose their patience because they can get everything instantly. There's a big knock-on effect because they can get everything instantly. Some people are going to. Well, some kids may struggle in their careers because they want to get a promotion instantly. It doesn't happen. So do you think the kind
there's
a lot of deeper stuff involved?
I think you're right, Jay, and a lot of what you're saying is really, really interesting. Do you think some of the more demanding nature, the shorter attention spans, maybe things like ADHD, things like that, are perhaps linked to this because of this instant gratification of social media? If you're bored with something, just keep scrolling and you'll go on to the next one. And maybe that's with adults too. Look at dating, for example, and the insecurity of so many different relationships. If you just keep swiping, there'll always be someone new.
Yeah. It could definitely affect them sort of conditions that you mentioned. Yeah.
Although I did have one colleague once who said he'd completed Tinder.
Sorry?
I did have one colleague once who told me he'd completed Tinder.
Nothing more to swipe.
Indeed. So, Jay, when you hear what the Prime Minister says, actually, let's just hear a little bit of what the Prime Minister has said here. We'll hear a little bit about what he wants to happen, and then, Jay, I'll get your reaction. This is what the Prime Minister said earlier today.
Social media is making children unhappy. It's making it easier for bullies to harass and abuse them. And it could even be harming their mental health, exposing them to content that is dangerous, because that's what grabs the attention. It's designed to be addictive. Features like the infinite scroll, they're designed to lock you in for hours. There's an opportunity cost to that. It stops children doing their homework, reading, playing with their friends outside, going to bed at a decent hour. But these are the activities that help a child develop into an adult. We know how important they are. We just never thought that something would come along to threaten them.
Jay, what do you make of the Prime Minister, what he's saying there? Do you trust that his instincts are right on this?
It really pains me to say it. It really, really pains me. But I agree with most of that. There's a few points that I didn't. But yeah, there was there was quite a lot that I agree with there. Homework is always going to be a struggle. It is down to the parents to stop that. But yeah, God, there's some arguments that we have. Yeah, you know, and like I said, they don't play out as much. I physically have to force the kids to do things. Well, you know, we push them to get involved in clubs and sports and that. You know, so the parents do have. He's right in what he's saying, but parents do need to do more. They need to like really force the children to do these things. And
I mean, you just sound like a really great dad, Jay, and I've spoken to you before on a couple of things, and you really, really care about your daughter. And I just wonder, I mean, not every parent will do that. A lot of parents will say, right, well, the phone's there or the tablet's there. That'll keep them quiet for a while. They're not actively looking at other ways to entertain their kid or to get their kid to join the scouts or the guides or whatever. I mean, I worry about that. I worry about the people who aren't as conscientious as you are.
Yeah, that's definitely it. If people aren't actively like assessing what's going on and putting these limitations in, God knows how other children's brains could be like. But yeah, the parents definitely need to do stuff. But we're definitely on the side of if there's more restrictions put in place. You know, happy days. We're outdoor people. We've got a caravan. You know, we like to go on camping trips and stuff like that, and get them outdoors as much as possible to try and get them off the device.
Sounds good. Well, Jay,
go back to the PlayStation if they want to stream. We've got a PlayStation.
Well, indeed. Jay, listen, thanks very much. Really good to talk to you, and thanks for that. Really appreciate all of that. Very interesting. And thank you to Peter, who's been in touch. Said, I thought the arson attacks on the Prime Minister were carried out by Ukrainian lads, not Russians. Well, the Russians were apparently behind it, according to an investigation. There's quite a lot of interesting stuff on that, actually, when it comes to that particular story. And let me see if I can give you a bit more info on it, actually, in terms of what the Prime Minister and this bizarre kind of arson attack. This is a BBC investigation panorama saying Roman Lavrinovich, who was convicted on Monday of conspiring to commit arson, seemed to know much about the Prime Minister as a bullet knows about his target. His anonymous handler gave a clue in the message, look, you attacked the home of a very high-ranking person in Britain, I'll send you money, you need to leave the city, but he was arrested within hours. So he was a Ukrainian builder, a 22-year-old who'd been apparently weaponised to target the UK's head of government, and they think that is Russia that was behind all of that. So very, very interesting. Craig says, I've got you on One Radio. My 8-year-old boy is listening to a different station, BBC Radio 5 Live. Why not talk sport? BBC 5 Live to the World Cup, as kids should be. As soon as the football goes to half-time, they put on a story about teachers sexually abusing children. Great, says Craig. Well, that's an interesting one. Debbie says, do you hate your audience? Stop playing the algorithm that is Starmer. Well, listen, I think he is the Prime Minister. I'm afraid we do have to listen to him from time to time. Heather is in South Ayrshire. Heather, what do you make of what's going on?
What's been going on about why is the white minority of the United Kingdom being denied an opportunity of getting on a job, getting on the working ladder, or getting any property in this country? Even our young people who are leaving school, just about to start their career off, and the white...
it's not a white minority, though. Okay, there are 85% of people in this country who are white, Heather. We're not a minority. We're actually a big majority. But as you say, there are definitely quite a number of different jobs and internships and so on that white people can't apply for. For example, this is... there's an example in the Telegraph, for example. I was told it was on my screen. It doesn't seem to be quite working. Oh, here we are. White people blocked from job seeker schemes in yesterday's Telegraph. Councils across the country offering segregationist training opportunities solely to ethnic minorities. What do you make of that, Heather?
Well, what I make of it is a lot of crap. This diversity, equality and inclusion is stopping the white majority of our people, our young people, from denying an opportunity of getting a future in this country, and they are robbing our young white people and that future by this diversity, equality and inclusion, and it needs to be abolished. There should be fairness with everybody to get a job in this country, regardless of their colour, their ethnicity, their sexuality.
Listen, I agree with you.
It's about time it needs to stop all this two-tier state nonsense.
Okay, listen, Heather, thank you very much. Let's hear a voice note before the news from Craig on social media.
The only way that Keir Starmer will be able to impose bans on social media applications on mobile devices for under 16s will be as follows. He'll have to work with Apple and Google, who manufacture Android, to impose a mandatory application that would be downloaded against your will to the device, let's say for all phones which have been active on the network in the UK for 6 months or more, so you don't capture, tourists in this endeavour. And then that will proxy all traffic to those sites through the application pending or following age verification steps. And it would also mean that you and I as adults would have to go through age verification to prove that we are over 16 or 18 and that we can access these applications. If he doesn't have any kind of technological innovation like that, he can't do it because you will be able to circumvent it, and that's just a reality. So just saying that he wants to do something doesn't make it possible.
Very interesting, Craig. Thank you for that. Debbie says, I'll come back to that actually in a second. One person says, Craig says, with regards to the banning of under 16-year-olds on social media, I know what my kids are doing. I know how they use social media because I've taught them. If they're forced to do things sneakily, I wouldn't have that. So I'd be helping my children get past this block so I can continue to be a good parent and not let the government get in my way, says Craig. And Debbie says, I don't think Jay understands teenage girls. We've always been horrible and always will be. Girls are very, very mean, says Debbie. That is coming from a woman who presumably was a girl at one point. So lots to debate on all of that. Why are they so mean? Stay with us here on Talk. Lots to discuss in the next hour.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Really interesting story about what's happening in Harrow in London. There are enforcement officers in uniforms employed by the council, although they've since left that employment, threatening people on the streets. We'll look at that video. We'll talk about that as well. Lots to discuss. It's a really shocking one. We'll also talk about Iran and what's happening there. In fact, Nat's been in touch from Tel Aviv saying President Trump appears to have failed the Iranian people as well as us here in Israel. As some have already pointed out, we should really have double-checked which side he meant when speaking of unconditional surrender back in March. Lots to discuss on that. And also, it is 30 years today since the dreadful IRA terrorist attack on the Arndale Centre in Manchester. A dreadful atrocity. We'll speak to someone who was there a bit later on in the programme. So much to discuss here on Talk. I'd love to talk to you about it. The social media ban is something a lot of people want to get in touch about, and if you want to have your say on that or any other issue between now and 10 o'clock, please do give me a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to ring. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, send me a voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message to the main number. You can also ring me on the main number, which is 0344 499 1000. Lots to talk about between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with us here on the Evening Exchange. Well, there's a really shocking video going around social media about what happened with enforcement officers, council workers, telling a man they'll rip his teeth out and knock you the F out during a high street row. The two men were filmed threatening a man on the street after they accused him with messing with our money in Harrow in northwest London. It happened on the 13th of June, so just 2 days ago. It lasts roughly a minute, and it shows two enforcement officers, both wearing hoods over their bright purple jackets and black vest, which are equipped with body-worn cameras. One of them says, "When I'm not in uniform, I'm going to knock you the F out and rip your teeth out. I'll come and throw you through the effing walls." It is an absolutely shocking and dreadful piece of film. Obviously, we have bleeped out bits of it, but let's have a look and listen to what happened.
What were you going to do then? I don't need to tell you what I was going to do. This guy, fam, is coming man now, it's off. What do you mean? Don't butt in my business.
Listen, you know what you're doing, Ack. You know what you're doing.
Don't call me Ack, fam.
You know what you're doing.
You're trying to mess with our money.
I'm not messing with your money.
I'm going to show you something right now. Come to the alleyway right now. We're going to show you what time it is. We're going to show you what time it is, bro. We're going to make sure you can't work no more and earn no money because you're trying to butt in with our money. And, bruv, do you know what I do to people like that? Come here now. Come and stop him, man.
Why would I come there?
Come here, pussy.
Why would I come there?
Brother, don't come in the business. I swear, when I'm not in uniform, I'm going to knock you the out and whip your teeth out. You know that. If I give you one punch, I'll knock all your teeth out. We've got people.
I don't know why you're getting aggressive.
Come across the road now because you're trying to mess with our money, bro.
I'm not trying to mess with your money.
I'm going to show you what time it is. Come now.
Nah, do your thing, man.
Call a police officer for you. He'll you up, you know.
Why would a police officer
work with them? Because we work with them and you didn't know that, did you? So come across the road now because I'm going to show you what time it is. Come across the road.
So can I ask you a question then?
Bro, I ain't having no one disrupt my job, you know. Do I come and disrupt your money when you're painting and decorating? You waste money.
Okay, let me ask you.
I'll come and throw you through the walls, brother, and put paint all over you, bro.
Lovely people. Kingdom Services Group, for whom these scumbags work, hasn't commented, but the company says it provides local authorities support services and that it is, get this, committed to helping local authorities create safer, cleaner and more welcoming communities, according to its website. Well, it doesn't employ these two men anymore, apparently, and certainly the spokesman for Harrow Council says they took swift action after the footage was widely shared on social media. It described the incident as unacceptable, saying the enforcement officers in the video had been sacked. A spokesman for the council said in a statement, "We're aware of a video circulating in relation to the conduct of two enforcement officers. Swift action was taken as soon as the incident and complaint were raised to us and Kingdom, which is the company that employed these people, in May, and the individuals no longer work for Kingdom." So the footage is actually last month, apologies. "We take any instance of officers deliberately turning off body-worn cameras extremely seriously. Threats of violence towards members of the public are wholly unacceptable and will not be tolerated." Yeah, these people issue fixed penalty notices according to the council's website. No way whatsoever these people should be employed. Absolutely dreadful. Let's talk to Henry Bolton about this, who's an international border control expert. Henry, what do you make of this?
Utterly and completely unacceptable, Peter. The behaviour of the two individuals, of course, you know, it speaks for itself. And in fact, I would say, as a former police officer, I'd say that they were committing a public order offence with those threats. The fact that they were doing so whilst wearing a uniform and undertaking a task for the local authority speaks volumes for the failure of the system to ensure that public organisation that are supposed to be, in this case, the council providing a variety of services, and I'll come on to specifically what in a minute in relation to this. These are taxpayer paid people working for the local authority, and the system allows this to happen. You get similar things with the courts. But first of all, these two individuals and Kingdom say that they support in this way about 35 different councils, and there's more than that in terms of the councils that employ or outsource fixed penalty ticket issuing for a variety of environmental offences. Now the problem here is that the law is incredibly badly worded. Much of our legislation these days is, and it just simply says that authorised officers, which may be outsourced. There's no constraint on that. It doesn't say that these people have to be public employees. So the local authority doesn't have direct control over these people. They outsource it. The courts do the same thing. So the law says that if you have let's say you owe money to somebody, they take you to the small claims court or the county court. The county court then appoints or judges against you. Then the court sends an officer around to come and speak to you. Well, that officer generally is not anything to do with the court. They're a freelance worker working for a commercial company who the court has contracted to do this job. And the problem there is that the law says that as an individual in that case, you can come to an arrangement with the officer who's coming to collect that debt for repayment. But these freelancers are paid on commission. They only get paid when you pay the fine. You've got the whole system that is meant to be protecting the public doesn't, because the law is so appallingly phrased. You've got a perfect example of that happening here. And I've got another problem with this. As a former police officer, I've got serious issues with people going around who are not trained. We don't know what training these people have got. They're not accountable in the way that a police officer or a public employee would be. And yet they're effectively enforcing the law. And I think that is utterly and totally unacceptable.
And it's interesting with them enforcing the law, as you say, because those fixed penalty notices, fines and so on are one of the few bits that we're good at as a country. We're good at issuing those. So many viewers and listeners to this show will have received those. I certainly have. And the enforcement and collection of those is something we do reasonably well, because places like Harrow Council know that is a massive money spinner. But I don't know about Harrow's record, but certainly when it comes to many local councils, when it comes to the stuff we actually want them to do, like fixing the potholes, like collecting the bins, like making sure our streets are safe and clean, well, they're often found wanting in that.
I think that you're absolutely right, and I'm not arguing that we shouldn't have a fixed penalty system. We do, and I think it's good, and in the main, it's administered in a fairly reasonable manner by most councils. The problem is that members of the public expect a public employee, somebody employed directly by the council, to be doing that job. I don't think members of the public are fully aware that actually this is outsourced to a civilian commercial organisation who then employs people. There's no sort of checks and balances on the training these individuals get. The criminal records checks are superficial. We don't know who half of these people are. I mean, it's not dissimilar, because it's not well-paid work. It's not entirely dissimilar, if I'm honest. The same with some of the security guarding companies. It's not dissimilar to people like the Deliveroo drivers and so on. The problem is that the system is not adequately designed, and the law is not adequately worded to account for, if you like, the money grabbing the commercial companies to which this is outsourced. And I say money grabbing because generally they make a stonking great profit.
You're absolutely right.
Which doesn't get passed on to the individuals.
Can I ask you about something else, Henry? This is the UK Army battling delays. The Telegraph is reporting Britain's £1 billion tank delayed by gearbox flaws. This is the British Army battling delays to a new fleet of tanks designed to outgun Putin's Russian forces, dealing a setback to Sir Keir Starmer's rearmament plans. Project leaders, the Telegraph reports this evening, working on the £1 billion Challenger 3 upgrade programme, are understood to be grappling with engineering problems caused by a weak gearbox, throwing into doubt plans for the vehicles to enter service next year, Henry.
Yeah, I'm not entirely familiar with this particular problem, but I can say, as a former Challenger crewman myself, Challenger 1 it was, a couple of iterations earlier, gearboxes are always a point of failure in a tank. It's to do more, not so much with the changing up and down of gear, but the way that the steering on a tank works. It puts huge stresses on the mechanics. But the Challenger 3 tank has been rather like the Ajax vehicle, which we've heard all about. The Challenger 3 tank has been really the subject of delayed procurement, phased procurement over a great deal of time. And as that's happened, the requirements of the Army have changed slightly over time because the vehicle is not any longer up to date. If you delay the entry into service of a piece of highly technical equipment like a tank, for sort of 5-10 years longer than you should have done, than was originally envisaged, then technology has overtaken it. You've got the advent of the drone warfare that we've seen in Ukraine. All of these things, then you want things changed on that vehicle over time. And that may involve additional armour, which is additional weight, which is additional strain on the mechanics of the vehicle. So what we've got here is, it sounds like, similar to the Ajax and a whole raft of other major procurement projects and programs. What we've got is Treasury-driven procurement programs rather than operational, threat-orientated, need-driven programs. And the result is that the whole system is basically broken down. Our procurement system in the Ministry of Defence is no longer fit for purpose. And it's not just the amount of money that's available, and we've heard a lot about that, and we've had the resignation of the Defence Secretary and the Armed Forces.
Yes.
But that's about the amount of money. But in addition to the problems with the amount of money, we've got a broken procurement system. Okay. So the money that is being put to these things, simply, it's not just not enough, it's being used in a way that does not meet the needs of the armed forces.
And we're going to get a view from America on that in just a few minutes. For the meantime, Henry, thank you. Henry Bolton there wears many hats for international border control expert, and you heard about some other rules that he's had in the past there. Rear Admiral Mike Hewitt, who's a former Pentagon official and ex-US Navy officer, will be speaking to us next. Lots of people getting in touch, including Suze, who says Harrow Council should no longer contract with Kingdom. We never used to have this problem. The council's subcontracting responsibility to thugs, in her opinion. Joanna from Birmingham says, I'm 35. I fully support the social media ban. I was bullied extremely badly as both a teenager and young adult through the medium of social media, to the point that I nearly took my own life. Joanna, I'm so sorry to hear that. That is absolutely grim, and thank you for messaging in, and I hope you're doing better now. She says, I now only use YouTube as I like watching videos on subjects like art, geography and politics. I do have Facebook on my phone, but I feel no inclination to use it. Thanks, Peter, says Joanna. Well, Joanna, I just wish you well, and I hope life is so much better now. And YouTube can be really good. There's some really good stuff on there. I was watching a documentary. I was talking about Roger Cook, the brilliant journalist who very sadly has now died at the age of 83. Do you remember the Cook Report in the 80s and 90s? I remember it kind of growing up, even as a kid, watching the Cook Report, and he'd confront the bad guys, and then they'd, attack him or use a baseball bat and break his ribs or whatever, and then he'd be fine the next week. It was just a really incredible sort of investigative journalism, and far braver than I was. He's died at the age of 83, but I was looking back at some of the clips that he did today. Really, really interesting to hear and see all of that. Andrew in Margate says about defence, I don't know why Labour can't find money for defence, but can find money for something. A few years ago I watched a BBC show called Cold War Hot Jets. During the Cold War, when a Labour government sold the Rolls-Royce turbojet engines to the Soviets and took them to use for civilian use only, the Soviets took the engines apart, rebuilt and made it faster with MiG-15 during the Korean War, and the US were angry and nearly cut aid to us. Labour are not to be trusted, says Andrew. Liz in Wrexham says, great show as normal. There's a reason why women or girls are just mean. It's just boys, and men will settle with a fist fight. Girls will resort to a character assassination, says Liz. And a very good one from Carol in Liverpool, who simply says, maybe girls are so mean because we have to put up with horrible boys. Lots to think about there. Thank you for that, Carol. We will discuss that and many other issues, including this Iran-US deal and whether it will end the war, whether the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened. Rear Admiral Mike Hewitt is standing by. We'll chat to him in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk.
I'm genuinely disgusted when people continue to point out failure after failure after failure and do not provide balanced analysis of the deliverable of services like the police. What I don't see from reform is them standing next to some of these people that they continually criticise and saying, actually, they've made a mistake here. There is a requirement for a review and we must get through it. But I'd also like to thank the police for doing an excellent job at stopping the riots, doing this, breaking this criminal gang, doing the hard work they do day in, day out. And I think we take it for granted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks everybody who's been in touch. George is in North Kent and says, I keep hearing we're 85% white in this country. The official figures say so. That's right, that's the census 2021. Obviously it was 5 years ago, but they do it every 10 years. And the evidence of our own eyes shows a different story. We're being gaslit concerning this, or there are far more illegal immigrants that the government are unaware of. The only all-white places I visit are garden centres, otherwise it's about 40% non-British. And George in North Kent there says, so thank you for that. Lots more to discuss in the next 40 minutes. There's many ways to get in touch. 0344 499 1000 is the main way. You can send us a WhatsApp text message or a WhatsApp voice note, or you can give us a ring on that. If you're a young person who wants to talk about social media, by all means get in touch. Be sure, if you're under 18, to get the permission of your parents as well. So loads to discuss on all of that. But I want to talk about the Iran war latest. The Trump saying ships are starting to move in the Hormuz Strait, and certainly there is evidence of that after the US-Iran deal. Also, there's an Israeli aspect to this as well, because they've attacked Lebanon post-ceasefire. Hezbollah haven't attacked post-ceasefire, apparently. Rear Admiral Mike Hewitt is the former Pentagon official and ex-US Navy officer. Mike, thanks for joining us this evening. Are we in the end game here? Do you think this is going to be something that is a sustainable and reasonable peace, Mike?
I think this is a significant event, signing this framework agreement, because what it's going to do is going to open up the straits. The U.S. has agreed to remove their blockade on Iranian commerce. They wouldn't do that if they didn't feel like an actual deal was in the making. the devil's in the details over the next 60 days as they work over the most important aspects of the Iranian nuclear program. But I think it's important to realize that President Trump has put himself in a position of strength in this negotiation, not weakness. The Iranian nuclear program is all but gone. What we're focused on now is their nuclear aspirations. And so I do not trust the Iranians. I don't think the president trusts the Iranians. So this deal will have to be verifiable and with inspection regimes that are non-compromising. So the devil's in the details, but I think the framework agreement and the fact that the president has signed this and has now traveled to the G7 is strategically important and commercially important for both sides.
It's interesting from the president's perspective, because this is almost like a sort of heads of agreement kind of agreement. As you said, there's a lot of detail to be worked out in the next 60 days. How confident are you that that can be done, especially when trust is at such a low ebb on both sides, and this has been such certainly a much longer war than Trump wanted it to be?
I want to be optimistic, but at the same time, the Iranians' track record with deals like this are pretty consistent. They violate the deal even before they sign it. They're going to find ways to kick the can down the road, move closer and closer to the November elections, and perhaps not agree on some of the key aspects of the nuclear program. We will have to wait and see. But again, Trump has destroyed Iran's nuclear capacity. He's not dealing with a country that can have a weapon for the next 10 to 15 years. That's an important distinction between that agreement and the JCPOA under Obama, by which they were hoping the Iranians would agree not to have a weapon. Trump has verified they won't have a weapon. Now let's negotiate.
What do you make of the Israeli aspect of this? There have been more unhappy words between Trump and Netanyahu, and a small number of Israeli attacks reported in Lebanon. Israel Katz, who's their defence minister, said his country won't withdraw from Lebanon. Essentially, you had the US and Israel going into this war themselves, with great provocation, of course, but they started the war, and we're in a situation where the two have been unhappy bedfellows in this.
Netanyahu and Israel have every right to defend their nation and protect their vital national interest. We've always known that the end state of the Middle East is not perfectly aligned between Israel and America, and we will not get in the way of Israel's ability to protect itself. I think the Lebanon issue, along with the nuclear aspirations of Iran, will be the two critical things that have to be negotiated over the next 60 days. Israel has their perspective, America has their perspective. And I never saw these two being in complete alignment, but I think what the president has done is to convince Israel that we are not going to abdicate your sovereignty in this process.
I wonder if I could ask you about something else. There are just so many aspects. I'm sure you've been following. Our defence secretary has resigned. A number of senior officers are very unhappy about the level of defence funding in the United Kingdom. We've had our Armed Forces Minister himself, a former commando, who has gone. He was the head of the Special Boat Service. We also have tonight another story, the UK Army battling delays to a new fleet of tanks designed to outgun Putin's Russian forces, setback to the rearmament plans. This is a £1 billion tank delayed by gearbox flaws. I just wonder, from an American perspective and with your knowledge of the American defence firmament, how do they view our defence, especially when so many in the UK seem to think, as I do, that actually we aren't adequately defended?
Tragically, this didn't happen overnight. This has been a succession of bad decisions with respect to the UK's defence industrial base, its ability to project power, and frankly, you've become even a weak nation to defend your own territory. I think if anything comes from this, the defence budget of the UK needs to align itself not just with the NATO commitments that's been outlined, but going back to being that global Five Eyes partner with the United States internationally. That is going to require a massive influx of capital to the defense industrial base. It needs to be done. It's long overdue. And we've seen demonstrations of this. If you recall, after the Iran wars began, we couldn't even get the UK ship deployed to protect your interest in Cyprus. That's indicative of not having a strategy that matches up with the rhetoric of the politics. I applaud those that have walked away in frustration, and hopefully this is a wake-up call. The United States would love to partner with the UK in rebuilding its defense industrial base, not from a selfish US military perspective, but we need the UK to be that partner in arms with us globally.
Mike, thank you. That is Rear Admiral Mike Hewitt there, former Pentagon official and ex-US Navy officer. Appreciate him joining us on the programme. And Zarina has been in touch and says, do you remember the Coalitions of the Willing that Starmer instigated? That was supposed to be spearheading a European defence strategy. The messages are too mixed and confusing. Zarina, I totally agree with you. Stephen's in London has some thoughts on these private companies doing the job of police. Stephen, what do you make of the footage that was there from Harrow?
Yes, I think it's a great idea. There should be much more private policing. They have an incentive to do the job well, because if they don't, they won't get hired.
Didn't work well in Harrow.
Yeah, exactly. And what happened? They got fired, because if they don't fire them, they go bankrupt. With the national police, the socialist police, if they mess up, they don't go bankrupt. They keep on.
Okay, so you think more private officers being subcontracted by the taxpayer to do this kind of stuff, because there's actually, in this case, horrible thing that happened, but at least there was some form of accountability.
Exactly. There's accountability of private companies. They have to do a good job, or they go bankrupt. With a national police service, if they mess up, they still get the funding. They've got no incentive for solving crimes. They don't get any more funding. They probably get more funding by not solving crimes, because they can claim we don't have enough money. So some very small percentage of burglaries get solved. There's no incentive for them for the National Police Service to do a good job and solve crimes. They don't get more money. But for private companies, if they don't solve crimes, they won't get hired.
A lot of it's not them solving crimes. It's not burglaries and armed robberies and the really serious stuff. It's the more straightforward stuff like enforcement notices and so on. I mean, they'll have financial incentives to punish people for tiny things. You know, following you down the street, desperately waiting for you to drop a tissue.
Well, I mean, they can only arrest people for breaking the law. If the person isn't breaking the law, then they can't be arrested.
They can give you a fixed penalty notice, though, for some quite small things. But listen, Stephen, really interesting call. Appreciate that. That's Stephen in London there. Different view on that, and whatever your view is on that or any other issue, please do give me a shout. 0344 499 1000. Believe it or not, it is 30 years today, I remember it very well, since the Arndale Centre was bombed, the Manchester bomb that IRA terrorists committed, an absolutely dreadful thing, and victims have been urged to apply for a Troubles pension scheme. This is the 30th anniversary, and we'll talk about that. And 220 people were injured in that dreadful terrorist attack by the IRA. We'll be talking to Barry Laycock, who was a bombing survivor himself. He is a bombing survivor himself. We'll chat to him after the break and remember what happened and hear Barry's story. I want your views on that and everything else as well. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Nat, who has been in touch and says Israel doesn't have a perspective, but a very sad reality. She's in Tel Aviv and knows all about it, certainly. And thank you to Suze, who says, Mike Hewitt says we can't even defend our own territories. He's so right. We can't stop the flow of young men about whom we know nothing. Why do US politicians and military sound so much more intelligent than the majority of our homegrown counterparts? We are run by Muppets. Scrub that. Miss Piggy could do a better job, says Suze. My goodness. I suppose she does have a good military strategy. Hiya, frog, is what Miss Piggy said. I think it's the first time I've impersonated her on air. Lots to talk about this evening. We will take your calls, texts, tweets and indeed voice notes in the next 27 minutes before Petri Hoskin comes on. I'll be having a chat with her, of course, before the 10 o'clock hour, and she'll be telling us what's coming up in her programme. In the meantime, please do give me a ring. We'll get as many callers on the air as possible, 0344 499 1000. But I just want to talk about something that has been on my mind for a while. It's the 30th anniversary today, believe it or not, since the 1996 IRA bombing of Manchester, the Arndale Centre, that involved 220 people being injured by IRA terrorism. It happened on the 15th of June 1996 in Manchester City Centre. And as this happens, there's actually an appeal by a very good victims group, SEFF, the South East Fermanagh Forum, I think it's called, and Kenny Donaldson is its excellent director, and he says that anybody who's been caught up in that attack, those 220 victims, should be applying to a pension scheme for those left permanently disabled from an incident in Northern Ireland's Troubled Past, if that is in fact what happened to them. And applications to the Troubles Permanent Disablement Payment Scheme is going to close in August, and the Victims Payment Board is keen to reach those who've suffered a permanent disablement, either physical or psychological, as a result of a Troubles-related injury, especially people who live in England, Scotland or Wales. In Northern Ireland, of course, there are many people who have been contacted, but there are lots of GB victims of IRA terrorism as well. And Kenny Donaldson has been talking about that, and he's also put us in touch with Barry Laycock, who is a survivor of that bomb. Barry is with us now. Barry, thank you for joining me this evening. What are your thoughts on this 30th anniversary?
A lot of reflections and memories, which I did write a few words about. It's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. It will never, ever go away. I've some very, very vivid memories and some memories that are very prominent in the mind.
Can you tell me what happened to you that day, Barry?
On that particular day, I worked at Manchester Victoria Station. I was a driver standards manager at that particular time, and I was on the first floor in the office. And around 10:15 a.m., a lovely summer's morning, June morning, I sighted the helicopter hovering above the Arndale Centre, and there was some sort of megaphone message coming from the helicopter asking people to vacate the Arndale Centre. Eventually, I noticed that all these people were heading for the station. Now, I understood that our station was the evacuation point in these sort of events. It wasn't something that was new to us, a bomb scare, albeit at that moment in time we didn't know it was a bomb scare, but we had a sequence of events that we used to go through, you know, in that event. Mm-hmm. Around 11 o'clock, it was getting so congested on the station that two supervisors that were with me, I sent them down to the station to try and control the crowds, because obviously it will only be a danger to our service. We're going to have to terminate the service if we couldn't control the crowds. About 11:05, I went down, Peter, down to the station to have a look, see what was going on. And I used to have a bleeper, and it was absolutely going mad. So I had to go back to the office to get my mobile phone. We had a sequence of events. What we did do on that sort of occasion, we opened all the doors, all the windows, and that's what we'd done that particular day. My briefcase, Peter, were down the side of my desk, and as I bent down, that is when the blast came. The blast came first, and then the bang. And as I were bent down, recovering my phone from the briefcase, it hurled me over the office up against the wall and the lockers, and I fell to the floor. I think it was concussed, Peter, momentarily. I'm not sure. But I was certainly dazed, and I looked out, I could see the mushroom in the sky, raising in the sky. And I could see all the high buildings around that side of the music school. It was dropping out of the buildings like confetti, glittering in the sunlight. And from then onwards, it was just a case. I did a quick observation of my body. I had no visible cuts or anything because there were glass everywhere, tables upturned and that. And I proceeded down to the concourse with some first aid boxes, and we started giving first aid to people.
Were you just on automatic pilot at that point?
We went on automatic pilot. Although I had a pain in my back, Peter, I didn't. I'd had a look down there. I had no visual injuries, blood-wise or anything. So, as I say, we just all got stuck in and helped the people. The people were running around with shards of glass stuck in them. What people didn't understand, Peter, our station was 150-year-old. And the glass in the roof wasn't shatterproof.
Yes.
You know, 150, it just fell from the sky, and all the people were on the concourse. I say, all the people came out from the concourse, and they finished up on the grassed area in front of Cheatham's music school, and we tended to a lot of the injured there. But the problem were, Peter, emergency services couldn't get into the city because they thought there may be a secondary bomb.
And that's often what the IRA did, wasn't it? They often had a secondary bomb. They waited for the forces of law and order to come in and then set another bomb off. So that must have been a real worry for them.
Exactly. So consequently, Peter, we had no means of getting these injured people to hospital. What we did do, eventually, we used the tram system to take them out to an outstation away from maybe Queen's Road or somewhere like that, and take them to hospital from there. We just all mucked in and did the best we could. I didn't realise until around 3-4 o'clock that I had severe pain in my back.
And what was wrong?
I had severe pain in my left leg and my back, and I just thought that were, I thought that were because of the impact with the wall and the lockers. Are you with me?
You'd be thrown against those. You thought that was just it, but was it something more?
It wasn't until a couple of days. I didn't go to hospital in that day, Peter, because there were people with more severe injuries than I had, which at that time I just thought I'll recover from this. It's just something that happened. But we got all the people to hospital, and we worked as butt off till late afternoon, and then I travelled back home. At that time, I had a caravan in Fleetwood, and I travelled in that day to work, because the following week I was going to have a week's holiday there.
Yeah.
So it didn't impact on me until probably halfway up the motorway at Leyland. I went into the service station, and that's when it hit me, really. I started to shake and everything. I think it was the stress and, the trauma. And I sat there for a couple of hours having a few coffees before I made my way back to the caravan. I stayed in bed all the following day, had the week's holiday. I went into work on the Monday. Someone come and took me to work because we had to have a meeting over what had taken place. And then the following week when I came home from the caravan, I did go to the doctors, and from then onwards, it was just downhill. It was just downhill. They found out eventually that the cartilage in my knee had collapsed, and I waited 18 months to have that operated on. A compression of the spine, which had its consequences. My leg was damaged. Eventually, I had to have the left knee replaced. Then eventually, because I were compensating on one leg, I had to have the other one done. And I've had ongoing treatment ever since for the spine. I had epidurals I had facet injections for 14 years, but eventually the spine became so bad that they couldn't get the needles in, so they reverted to started with epidural injections in the coccyx of the spine, and I had them until about 2019. And now at this moment in time, it's morphine patches now.
So 30 years on, you're still suffering from what happened that day?
I will never recover, Peter. Things will only just get worse. You know, I understand that. You know, I mean, I've been told by top specialists that enjoy life because you don't know how long you've got. It's not terminal, but it has a big impact on my life, my family life, everything. And it was a contributing factor to my wife's early death, Peter.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I was 50-some-year-old at the time, and then I only went back to work a few days up to the August, and then that was it. The company doctor and my local GP suggested that I go on permanent sickness.
Yeah.
And then in the following April, Peter, that was the time when the time came when British Rail decided that I weren't fit for purpose kind of style, albeit they were really good to me, Peter. British Rail, they were the people that really looked after me, and I had no complaints about them. They really took care of me.
Barry, it was just 2 years later that the Belfast Agreement was signed that brought peace to Northern Ireland. When you think about the people who planted that bomb, when you think about the IRA, what do you think now?
Well, in respect to the peace agreement, Peter, I spoke to an Irish correspondent. As you know, I was one of the complainants in the Adams case.
Yes.
And I spoke to an Irish correspondent, and we had a long talk about the peace agreement. And my response to him was, "What peace agreement are you talking about?" And he couldn't understand my feeling on it. I says, as far as I'm concerned, Mark, there's never, ever been a peace agreement as such, not in its entirety. I believe that it was something that was imposed on the British government by the IRA. I mean, the British government, I think one of the conditions were that the IRA lay down the arms and give up the arms, as far as I'm aware.
That is true, yes.
This is what I understand, Peter, but the IRA were determined to keep the arms. So, as I say, to me...
They did eventually give up their arms, or they said they did anyway, as time went on.
Yeah, to me, it was imposed on the government, Peter.
Yes. Do you think I am. Do you think you'll ever get truth and justice for what happened to you?
I live in hope. So I'm not particularly bothered about the truth and justice for me, Peter. I want it for all the people that ever... I've fought, Peter, for 30 years, well, 20 years plus, to get Adams into the dock. And I'm only bothered about other people. I'm 80-some-year-old, Peter, and, you know, my life was very, very limited at this moment in time. So, obviously, I'm fighting for other people. I want justice for people as far back as 1974, February 4th, 1974, Peter. I live not a mile away from where the M62 bombing was when they killed the soldiers on the bus and wives and children. There was 12 people killed on that bus, Peter. Those are the people who I am fighting for. I will fight for justice as long as I have a breath in my body, Peter.
Barry, it's a privilege to talk to you, and thank you very much for speaking to me on this anniversary. I wish you well, and I really thank you for talking to me. And I mean, it's worth I suppose saying that Gerry Adams obviously denies ever being a member of the IRA, lots of people don't believe him, and I'm one of them, I'm afraid. Rachel is in Nottingham. She went to university in Salford. Were you at university at the time of the bombing, Rachel?
Hi.
Hi, Rachel.
Just on the back of what you just said, I don't believe Gerry Adams either, but I know that's not what we're talking about.
Sure.
First off, I don't support terrorism in any form, anyway. I was at uni then, but I had a job in I don't know whether it was called Wendy's. It was like a new ice cream shop in the Arndale. So I do remember being evacuated.
Were you working that day in the Arndale Centre?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So what happened to you?
Honestly, what I remember, and it's so funny just listening, and I've loved listening to them. I'm going to decorate my kitchen more. I've had such an education with all your callers. But yeah, there was a warning. We were evacuated. I know people, and just like that gentleman, thankfully no lives were lost.
Well, 220 people injured like him.
Yeah, no, it was horrendous because I got the bus back to. There was a few friends. I shared a house with 11 people, and there was lots of Irish, Northern Irish. There was a house full of 11 people, and everyone was just like, "Oh, is that just?" It was like nothing was really made of it. My own mum and dad didn't call to see if I was okay.
Right. Yeah.
It was that kind of, and we were allowed back in a few days later because I was allowed to go and collect my bag, and I saw exactly the damage. That stays with me. Thankfully.
What did you see?
There was like the ice cream cabinet. I've never seen anything like it, and I hope never to God to see anything like it at all. But they were like sucked in unit. It's really hard to describe. And honestly, this is it's not nostalgic because I've obviously tried to forget it, but just carnage. And I've never seen. I was only 21 then, but we were allowed back in, and it was kind of. We didn't take it light, but we kind of did because it wasn't even really publicised. Like I said to you, my sister's brother's mum, there was no mobile phones, and it was just. I remember just calling my mum the next day, and it was like, "Well, we heard this on the news. Are you all right?"
Were you just sort of getting on with it? Thankfully, you weren't injured, but was that something you just felt you had to do?
I think then. After going back and then seeing the damage, that stayed with me. It was frightening, but at the time, we were all told to, don't let this make you live in fear. And but strangely, life did carry on really quickly. Like I just said, it was just when I hear people talk about it now, and especially that gentleman beforehand. The real significant impact, I was quite naive. I was 21. I worked in an ice cream shop in Arndale. I loved being at uni in Manchester. I went there because of Blur and Oasis. And so I was having this great time. But actually, the significance now that you've brought it up tonight, I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah, perhaps made you think of it in a different way. Rachel, really interesting to talk to you. That's Rachel in Nottingham there, who was in the Arndale Centre that day. Very, very interesting. And we can never forget the dreadful terrorism that the IRA and loyalist paramilitaries visited on Northern Ireland, and indeed in GB in Ireland as well, in the Republic of Ireland. And thank you to Rachel for her call. We'll take some more calls right up to 10 o'clock and have a chat with Petri Hoskin as well about what's coming up on our show between 10 and 1. Stay with us here on Talk.
I'm genuinely disgusted when people continue to point out failure after failure after failure and do not provide balanced analysis of the deliverable of services like the police. What I don't see from reform is them standing next to some of these people that they continually criticise and saying, actually, they've made a mistake here. There is a requirement for a review and we must get through it. But I'd also like to thank the police for doing an excellent job at stopping the riots, doing this, breaking this criminal gang, doing the hard work they do day in, day out. And I think we take it for granted.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you, everybody who has been in touch. Sue says Barry Laycock's story is humbling. What an amazing man. He appears to be so stoical, even though his life was ruined by the IRA. So angry that Hermer and Starmer have pardoned the perpetrators while ex-soldiers are being persecuted. So sad that Barry's life has been so impacted, yet he is not bitter. He just wants justice for others. I should say that Hermer and Starmer haven't pardoned them per se. There were letters of comfort that were given to people who were on the run. Certainly a lot of people were convicted and went to prison, but they were given early release under the Belfast Agreement. That's not Starmer or Hermer's fault, but certainly the prosecution of soldiers is something that a lot of people want to have a word about and believe is the wrong government policy, and it's certainly something I grappled with quite a lot. Catherine in Cardiff says, what an absolute gentleman you had on regarding the Arndale Centre bombing. Words fail me. They do not make them like that anymore. The word hero is bandied about too readily today, but he is a true one, says Catherine. Bob in Cheltenham says Barry's story was brilliant. Well done for covering it. Really brings it home. What a story. He told the story so well, and thank you to Bob for that. Appreciate that. On defence, Ernie says, why are we wasting money on tanks? Iran has been fighting wars for years, like the Iraq-Iran war. They're seasoned campaigners in conventional warfare. Yet they were brought to their knees by America before they even started up a tank. We've got to spend money on air defences and drone and missile technology. The world is a high-tech world now. We need to get with the times. Let's speak to Ronald in Golders Green, wants to talk about Restore Britain. Ronald, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hi, Peter.
Hi there.
Thank you for having me on. I just wanted to say about Restore Britain, I think the party started on the right track, and they've just gone way too far. They've become, they've... I always like giving an analogy about politics, that it's a little bit like having a bath, right? If you have a newborn baby and you put them in a bath, if the bath is ice cold, you're going to kill the baby with pneumonia. If you have the bath boiling hot, you're going to burn the baby to death, right? So politics has to be that very fine balance, At the moment, I think the country suffered a lot from, too much left-wing politics.
Is that why you joined Restore Britain? Because there are a lot of people, it certainly has a high degree of support, but you sound as if you're perhaps not happy with them now. Is that accurate?
I'm not, yeah, correct.
So what's changed? What's changed for you?
Because there's been way too much anti-Semitism on that party, which translates into baseless hate.
Have you seen this? Have you seen that yourself?
I have seen it. I've spoken to many people within Restore Britain, and there's prominent people who Rupert Lowe's accepted in the party, who have strong anti-Semitic views, and and they're just taking it. They're taking it way too far, I think.
So have you decided not to support them anymore? If you left the party, or what have you done?
I just think the way the party's going, that they're just neo-Nazi. It's just too far for me, isn't it? But I would say I would...
Is that a fair thing to say, that everybody involved is like that? I mean, there may well be some people who hold those views, and there are lots of extremists in all parties, but do you honestly believe that tens of thousands of people hold those views in Restore Britain?
No, I don't think everyone, and it may even be safe to say that the majority don't. But when there is such haters in the party and it's tolerated within, I just feel it'll be like a growing cancer, and it's just gonna, we're gonna revert back to fascism.
Okay, well,
no good.
Ronald, thank you very much indeed for your call, and I just want to make it clear that there's absolutely no suggestion that Rupert Lowe is in any way anti-Semitic or a fascist or anything like that, and that's not what Ronald was saying, but I just want to be absolutely clear about that as well. Petri Hoskin is with us now. Hello, Petri. You're there here on the other side of 10 o'clock with your show. What's coming up?
Indeed. We're going to be talking to the fabulous Sean Bell. I love Sean Bell.
He's great. He breaks it down really well, doesn't he?
He is just the best. He's a military analyst, looking at this memorandum of understanding in detail and looking to see really what does this mean and will it hold? Because Israel is not willing
it seems to me, I'm sure you'll get into this with Sean, but it seems to me it's the sort of heads of agreement. It's a sort of a general, broad agreement, but there's 60 days to get into it. And are we actually going to get a good outcome?
I mean, and the last deal took 2 years to do. It's a mess. And as much as Donald Trump is going, there's going to be peace in the Middle East, it is going to take decades for those relationships to heal in the Middle East. And Iran, are now saying that they want to charge tolls. J.D. Vance is saying then, who knows what's going on.
We'll see what happens
anyway,
there.
We'll be looking at that. Also, we're going to be looking at Starmer's last week, potentially, and what all that means. And Andy Burnham, the guy who's coming on to talk about it, knows him. He happens to be my brother, who is a great journalist.
Of course, yeah.
And so I'm interested to see what he makes of all of that. And then we're going to be looking at the first trillionaire, and at midnight asking the question, what should these mega rich people do with their money? What would
you do? What's the first thing you would do if you're a trillionaire?
Faint. I would 99% of it would be given away.
Okay.
Immediately.
To me?
Yes, of course.
Good, excellent. Well, that would be a very good use of the money.
Yeah,
I
thought so. Yeah, you could buy more pink shirts.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean,
been a lot of commentary on that this evening. Do you know what? I actually know someone reasonably well. I saw him today who is like super wealthy, about 500 million quid. And I've said to him on numerous occasions, just said, look, if you give,
if you're troubled,
£1 million would be a lot to me. Wouldn't be a lot to you. You wouldn't miss it.
It would be nothing.
It would be nothing.
And it's
exactly.